Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. When I speak, my topic is something that I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say carpe diem. Go after the things that you want in life. Something that I wanted to do this year was to rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with other people, with all of you. And today we're going to talk about season 4, episode 5. We're pretty much at the halfway mark of season 4 at this point, which it's just been flying by, hasn't it? So, before I get into it, the last interview that I did was with Joe Dinical, who played Craig Bosch in season 3. And it's so funny because when I was prepping for his interview, I kind of looked at IMDb and I was like, wait, is this right? He was in 3 episodes. He was only in 3 episodes. And I feel like Craig and Doug together make such a big impact on this show. So it was a really fun conversation. He's had a lot of great insights about Craig, and Craig has a lot of impact on Cam and Donna. So that's going to be a fun one to go back to. Now, today, we're going to talk about season 4, episode 5. This one was called Nowhere Man. Let's add this one to the list of episode titles that are potentially inspired by songs. Okay, so Nowhere Man is a song from the Rubber Soul album for the Beatles. I don't know, it's like an existential crisis song, maybe. So just some of the lyrics here. He's a real nowhere man sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. And if you want more really inspiring lyrics, go to Rubber Soul. When I think, like, I didn't go back through the entire song. That's just, what jumped out in my head when I first was thinking about that song. I didn't go back through the entire song, but when I first think about the song, I'm guessing that lines up the best with Joe here. Joe's in a spot, isn't he? He's just, it's a tough episode for Joe. I think it's like, tell him what he's won. It's like, here's what he's wanted. Here's what he was pining for, depressed for years. And he's like, is this it? Like, what? Oh my God. Okay, so anyway, the Nowhere Man episode aired September 16th, 2017. It was directed by So-Young Kim. It was written by Angelina Burnett. And here's the description. Suspicious of Rover's new algorithm, Donna stalls further support in order to get answers, pushing Bosworth to his breaking point in the process. Cameron, after receiving an unexpected visit from Tom, makes a confession to Joe. So, yeah, pretty good all in all. We're leaving out Gordon and Katie in that description, but it's some of the main notes of the episode. Let's get into the scene by scene breakdown with this. There are going to be some parts of this episode that I'm sort of working my way through an explanation as I talk, as I often do. So we'll see where I land with my analysis on some of these storylines that are happening here. But the first thing that we're going to see is sort of an echo of what we saw at the end of the last episode. So Donna is getting home from this is like immediately after coming home from that announcement party that Rover had, where she congratulated them on getting their Series A financing in front of everybody. Donna's front door closes behind her. She's just walked in. She's wearing the same thing that she wore at the end of the last episode. She puts down her keys. She's totally lost in thought, and she's flashing back in her own brain. We don't get a technique like this very often, where this is how we're showing that a character's thinking of a thing. So I like that we're trying new things here in season 4. She is remembering the conversation that she had with Cecil at the end of the event. We see her face, we hear her voice as a pre-lap from the scene we sort of saw before. She's saying to Cecil, well, I was just a little bit surprised because, you'd struggled for so long. Now we're going to actually go to that moment. We're going to see her talking to Cecil after, or just immediately after the announcement. She says, so I just have to ask, who wrote the new algorithm? Now, how's he going to answer a question like that? Especially with everything we know by the end of this episode. So Cecil's going to pause. He's like, just stick to the story. So he says, well, I mean, I did, though I got to give Boz credit. So it's like he is sticking to the story. He answers the first question right quick, and then he gets back into the very rehearsed story that Donna is now picking up on as a rehearsed story. One thing that I like about the way they shot this moment is Cecil and Donna are having a conversation in the foreground of this scene, and we can see a few people, we can see people behind them, chatting throughout the room, but there are a few people in particular that are lined up perfectly for us to see, and that is Boz, Tanya, and Diane also having a conversation, except now Cecil and Donna go out of focus in the foreground, and we see Boz go into focus in the background, and he is watching this conversation. He's not really participating in his own. He's watching this conversation, kind of like Donna was doing in the last episode. So Cecil saying, I got to give Boz credit. He had a great idea. Yeah, we're calling it the waiting room concept. People wait in line in life. Donna tilts her head a little like, oh no, he's going to repeat the same thing, isn't he? He says, why not on the web? He chuckles a little bit, the planned chuckle. Boz is still watching all of this. Cecil continues. He says, so I created a queuing program. Yeah, our crawler was rude. And he leans in and he says, I had to teach that sucker some manners. And he chuckles and she chuckles, but she squints. She's like, this is too rehearsed. That's exactly what I heard a moment ago. That's, like something is up. This is too fishy. Donna raises a glass to him, being fully on to him, and she says, well, you enjoy the party. And so now we're back to Donna at her house. She's replaying this moment. It's a handy way to remind the audience where she is right now, what she's thinking about, what's going on. It's sort of exposition, but also it's sort of exposition, but it's not exposition because they're actually not telling us what she's really thinking. Like, they're not telling us overtly that she's saying this didn't happen. They're going to get to that later in the episode. So they're just giving us that little clue once more. She takes off her blazer. We're going to hear in the background, there's chiming happening on the computer, and the keyboard is clacking, and Joni shouts, no, oh my God. And Donna's like, what's wrong? Joni is sitting her head back in frustration. She's just so sick of it. We've got Pilgrim on her screen, the game Pilgrim. And she's like, this is so annoying. And it must be true because this is like Cam's biggest fan right here. Okay. But Joni is not having this game. Yet another person who can't handle Pilgrim. Okay, so Donna's like, what's wrong? Joni's sitting back. Donna comes over. She's like, what's that? Is that Cameron's game? Joni says, I thought that review guy was just an asshole, but then she's like clacking keys on the keyboard. She says, this is actually impossible. Like, she doesn't want anyone to actually win. Donna's leaning down and she's looking at it. Donna's like, well, did you try all of these things? She's like pointing to things on screen. All three of these, did you try them? We're hearing this very like ethereal sounding music in the background of this game. Joni looks like quietly annoyed. She's like, of course I tried all of them. She says, they all take you back to the beginning. It's so like the whisper of death with her. She like clacks a few more keys. She pecks at him. She gets up. She says, I'm getting ice cream. She's going to vacate the computer, but she's done her job. She's brought Donna to it. You can lead a horse to water. It wasn't Joni's intention, but that is going to be the result here. Joni, she gets up, she walks away. Donna kind of frowns a little bit. She's like, Cam's game. She is very curious though. She leans down. She's got some interest. She's staring at the game. She's not actually interacting with it yet, but her interest is piqued. Okay. It's such a different looking game too. It's really aesthetically pretty for the capability of the graphics at the time. Just the color palette of the game was quite lovely. Anyway, so we're going to get shirtless Gordon is at home. He's opening a fortune cookie and he considers the fortune. And he's like, hey, you think I'd make a good spy? That clearly has nothing to do with the fortune that he just read. He's shouting to somebody else that we can't see just yet. We see him looking at his TV. It's in his living room. He's on his couch, and we've got a movie paused on screen. It's Sneakers. This is going to come up a couple times in this episode. We are then going to see whoever he was shouting to. So there's a woman walking barefoot into the living room, crosses in front of the frame, in front of the coffee table. And I've got to tell you, I spent a minute on this coffee table. I thought it was a pull-out sofa bed at first, and that they had pulled the sofa bed out and that they had this big, like, Southwestern Afghan or something on it. No, that's not what it is. It's a sofa and a fabric coffee table. I didn't know that was a thing exactly. I was like, is it a really big hassock to put your feet on? But there's Chinese food and wine all over it. No, it's his coffee table. Okay. What a choice. What a piece to have in your home. Okay, so this woman crosses in front of the frame, goes to join him on the couch. We hear Katie with imitating an Eastern European accent. She says, I leave message here on service, but you do not call. She laughs. We're going to get Gordon smiling. These two have consummated their relationship, possibly just now. I don't know if they've like been official for longer. She gets back onto the couch with him. He's like, why, do you want to watch something else? Is she making fun of Sneakers? Because that would be beyond the pale for Gordon. Katie's like, no, I'm really into it. He's like, yeah. He says, her accent is ridiculous. And then she switches back into this Eastern European accent. She's like, how many times have you viewed this moving picture show? It's like, geez, I don't know, too many times. I've lost count. This is 4 in the theater. Okay, this is Gordon's favorite film. I haven't seen this film. Maybe I need to watch it to get into Gordon's mindset here. Katie puts her normal voice back on. She's like, oh my God. Gordon says, easy, I like what I like. Katie says, well, I like that you like what you like. They kiss. And she says, it totally makes sense that it's your favorite, though. He's like, what's that supposed to mean? She says, are you kidding me? It's a motley crew of dude friends pulling capers with nothing more than nerdy technical skills and a dash of moxie. Okay. Well, yes, that's why. Puts it into context for me. I hope it does for you as well. Maybe somebody who's seen this film could add a little bit more insight, but that's a really good explanation. Gordon's like, well, and then he's going to read his fortune. It reminds me of an improv game where you have like a bunch of lines written on pieces of paper all throughout the floor. They're tossed onto the floor, and the people in the scene have to pick up lines and work them into the improv scene as they're going through a scene. They don't know what the lines are. They just have to like figure out how to make it make sense on the fly. So Gordon kind of does that here. They're having this whole conversation. He picks up his fortune. He says, functioning superbly does come automatically to me. Oh my goodness. I don't feel like I've ever read a fortune quite like that, nor like hers that we're about to hear in a minute. So Katie goes, fortunes. And so she gets hers, she opens it. He says, what did you get? She throws her head back. She laughs. He's like, well, let me see. She says, an exciting Tim is coming your way. Or Or it says, an exciting Tim is coming my way. Gordon's like, damn it. And I'll bet he likes swing dancing. She's like, why swing dancing? And he says, isn't that the thing you do every Friday night? She says, roller derby. He's like, seriously? She says, I don't know how you could mix those two things up. It feels like such a real conversation between them. I just love how lived in this conversation feels and how natural they feel with each other. I really like this pairing. I think, look, I think Gordon is a different guy than he was in the first 3 seasons, definitely the first 2 seasons, and certainly the first season. And I think he's a different guy than he was with Donna. I think that I don't know, he's got like this perspective on life now that I think makes him appreciate the things he needs to appreciate and like let things roll off his back when they don't feel as important. And I think he's valuing Katie here. He's valuing this time together. I like the questions she does ask. I like the things she's not asking about. I like the sort of drama freeness of their relationship that they've got so far. So Gordon's like, seriously, she's like, I don't know how you mix those two things up. I like the fact that they're both able to assert their interests in this relationship, which was obviously a thing that was not happening very much in Gordon and Donna's relationship. They got to a point where they both had these like things that they quietly loved, and the other person either tolerated them or kind of didn't, or they just never even talked about it. And so here we've got these two starting fresh, and they're both putting their respective interests out there. And they're like, okay, that's fine. And they're working it into their lives. Okay, so Gordon says, in my defense, I was incredibly distracted by how bad I wanted to sleep with you. Katie's like, nice save. So they're going to kiss here. So Gordon's like, roller derby, huh? That's hot. He says, I know you want to come tomorrow. Gordon says, yes, I do. So they kiss. And he says, oh, wait, I've got the girls tomorrow. She's okay. She's happy to let that go also. She's not going to press the issue, but he says, well, I don't know, maybe I'll see if they want to come too. She nods with interest, like, okay, like we're at the stage of the relationship. Cool. It's a bit of a different part of the stage to get to than it sometimes is for people, because she's already working with Haley. She knows Haley pretty well. Not in this context, not in the context of I'm dating your dad, but she's already got somewhat of a relationship with Haley. She doesn't know Joni, which, let's face it, is the bigger challenge anyway. So, she's like, okay, let's do it. She's all for this meeting the kids situation. Gordon says, okay, then. They smile at each other. He sits up to grab the remote. She says, do you mind if we rewind a bit? I don't want to miss any madcap adventures. He says, oh, I think we've missed way more than a bit. He rewinds, then he hits play, and we're going to hear the Eastern European accent again. I leave a message here on service, but you do not call. Gordon's like, one more time. And he rewinds. She laughs. Katie laughs. And we hear the line again. I hear a message. I leave message here on service, but you do not call. This time Gordon is mouthing it because he's just seen this movie so many times. He clearly loves this part. Katie is shaking her head. And I like the fact that they probably paused here because Katie was just cracking up at how cracking up at the accent. And so they probably had a whole conversation about it. She went up to get something and then she came back. And that's like the middle of where we're catching them when we see this scene. Okay. Let's talk about a relationship that does not feel like it's in this fresh and new place, shall we? Joe and Cam. They are at Joe's apartment. Cam is washing dishes in the kitchen. Joe's sitting at the counter looking through a book. I like the way this is laid out for the purposes I like the way this space is laid out for the purposes of having a scene there, because we get like this counter facing the sink. It's not an island, but I guess it would function like that. It's a nice space. Cam is going to say, and then the guy drove all the way back to my house to bring me the bag that I forgot because he said he knew I loved my Yoo-hoo. Can you believe that? I mean, these people are the nicest people on the planet. I don't know why anyone lives in the city anymore. So I guess she is meeting people. She's meeting her neighbors. I gotta say, we've seen the Airstream. Doesn't look like there are neighbors anywhere near her, but they are. I guess they're coming to introduce themselves, or she's she's meeting them getting groceries. That's how it works. She meets people getting groceries. Joe points it out here. He says she's like, I don't know why anyone lives in the city. He's like, so you don't have to drive 30 minutes to get your groceries. Well, there it is. He's a man looking for the convenience of living in the city. She says, well, good point. It's a good point, but it's not like she's happy to receive it. Joe says, we weren't totally wrong, though. Cam says, what? Joe says, comment. Okay, that's what he is thinking about. When Joe gets fixated on something, he's going to keep thinking about that, and he's going to keep talking about it out loud. So he says, comment. Search was always a land grab. He's going to sigh. He's like, but I thought we planted a flag. Now, flush with all that cash, Rover will be able to innovate in ways we cannot. Cam's looking at him, just kind of a bit guilty here. He says, especially with the current structure. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you were right. Cam can't even look at him. He says, algorithmic search is the future. Cam drops a wine glass in the sink. A little piece of it breaks. She's like, ah, shit. He says, you okay? She's like, yeah, she's inspecting the glass. So he's like, okay, well, then I'll continue my thoughts. He's like, I don't know why we would wait to pivot. Cam is going to walk away a little bit to throw the glass away in the garbage. She's not responding. She says, I think I'm going to stay in the Airstream tonight. Frankly, I don't think that she would have said that or wanted to do that if not. Well, I don't know. It seems like she stays at the Airstream as often as she can, but I think she's just feeling so guilty that, and Joe can't stop talking about this situation with Rover. He cannot stop talking about it. And she perpetrated this by helping Buzz. So she's feeling so guilty. This is definitely something that's coming between them now, as if they need another thing to come between them right now. Joe's like, what? He looks at his watch. He's like, it'll be 11 by the time you get there. So she's making this decision post dinner, post washing the dishes. She didn't tell him that she was going to stay at the Airstream. She's just deciding this in the middle of the conversation. It's like, it'll be 11 by the time you get there. She's like, ooh, scary, 11. She chuckles a little bit. He's like, all right, yeah, do what you want. But she's like, what? He says, I was really hoping you'd come to comment with me in the morning. She's kind of wide-eyed, like, I can't. I'm so in the middle of this. He says, I want to have a brainstorming session with Gordon and we could really use your perspective. Kim's like, Joe, I didn't mean to get in your head about the algorithm, okay? Just forget it. He's like, you didn't. Rover did. Kim's like, you should just keep doing what you were doing. You have a very unique approach. He says, just one day, maybe two. He's like, please, work with me, work with me. She says, no, I don't want to get in the middle of things with you and Gordon right now. He says, I'm not asking you to mediate. Cam says, I'm telling you it's important that we keep things separate. Joe is more forceful here. He's like, Cam, Rover is going to kick our ass. She's defensive here, and she's like, that's not my fault. She scoffs a bit. She walks out of frame. He says, I didn't say it was your fault. She comes back around. She was walking out of frame to sort of walk around the counter. She comes to the, like, kind of right next to him, back into frame. Her eyes are pretty wide here. He's saying, I didn't say it was your fault. I'm asking for your help. He is gesturing sort of like back to himself. He's trying to be really like delicate here. He's like, I didn't say that. I am asking for help. And he's sort of in the process, it kind of like makes him physically appear a little smaller. He's like sort of shrinking back from her a little bit. She says, yeah, now, you know, this feels like a revisionist history comment to try to stop an argument that's in progress, except that does not feel like it lines up with what I understand about how this conversation has been going down with them. And it doesn't for Joe either. She says, yeah, now you're asking me for help. She somewhat forcefully grabs a book that's on the counter. She brings it around the other side of him. She starts putting it in her bag. She starts to pack up like she's going to go. He's like, I said you were right. Cam says, okay, you and Gordon didn't want me to be a part of your little club. Joe flinches a bit. He's kind of confused at this. She says, you weren't even listening to me. I'll comment on this after I get through a few more lines here. Joe's like, that is not true. I asked if you wanted to be involved and you turned me down. She's at the door. She's putting on her jacket. She's still going. This isn't making her stop putting on her jacket. He gets up. He goes closer to her because frankly, he's not letting her twist things on this. He's like, I also asked if you wanted to move in and you don't want to do that either. She's like, I ask you out to the Airstream all the time. And he says, with now their voices are getting louder. He says, I can't stand up in the damn thing. She's putting on her backpack. Nothing is stopping her here. He says, look, I've been really understanding with you. She stops moving when she hears this. He says, beyond patient. Cam laughs. She's like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were running a tab. She leaves the apartment. He walks into the kitchen. He slams a wok and lets it fall to the floor, probably breaking it, I'm guessing, based on what happens later in the episode. So, yeah, Joe and Cam. Cam's saying, yeah, now, like you're asking for help now. Okay, yes. In the previous episode, we saw a scene where Cam was fixing her motorcycle at Comet, and Joe was looking at Rover. Gordon was right next to him. They were talking about it. Cam comes over, she grades Rover, and they're both like, yeah, we didn't ask. That did happen. But also, he did ask if she wanted to work with him, and she said no. And she has also said she said out loud before in another conversation, like, you and Joe working together, nope, it's a minefield. Can't do it. That's what she said. So my sense is that this has come up and she's the one putting the brakes on. Even though we did see that scene where she graded Rover, she was looking at Rover, I have the feeling that it's her that's been putting the brakes on this, and it's her that has that let's not work together boundary. So Joe being like, wait, like she's saying this because she wants it to be a fight so that she can leave the Airstream. She wants there to be something happening here where they both have fault, they both have some amount of blame, because she feels so guilty about the fact that, like, really this entire problem that Joe's having is caused by her, or at least she's involved in it. It's not caused by her, but she helped Boz fix the algorithm that they couldn't fix. And now, like, all of these good things are happening for Rover. And it probably wouldn't be that way if Cam hadn't jumped in to save their day. So Joe has no idea what all of this backlash is from Cam. For me, it's just straight up guilt. And she just wants this to be like a mutual fight that they're both all the way in. And Joe is like rightfully being like, hey, now, granted, his choice to say, I've been really understanding with you beyond patient. He has. I was saying that in the last episode. But if you speak a thing like that out loud to the person you're being understanding and patient with, it's definitely not going to end well. So I don't know. I mean, I think could you broach the subject? Maybe, but in a different way, you know? So there's that. So she leaves pissed. And he's broken his walk. Okay, so now we're going to get a scene from the next morning. Cam had fallen asleep on her open book. She's in the Airstream. We hear the birds chirping. She has that. It was kind of cool to see this play out. You know, when you first wake up in the morning and you're not fully booted up yet, and then like all of a sudden it all comes flooding back to you, like, oh yes, this is what I'm dealing with today. You can see that happening for her in real time, where she's like, oh, the fight. Then we're going to see Joe storm into the Comet office. He has this, I called it in my notes, an annoyed saunter. It's, I don't even know if saunter is the right word, but it felt kind of right. Like it's kind of a little bit smooth, but also really angry. Um, and so he's going to see Katie and Gordon playing air hockey when he first walks in. That's a great thing that he can be annoyed about with reason. So Gordon's going to say to Joe as Joe's walking in, hey, I got Katie on the ropes in this air hockey game. Katie's like, oh, I'm letting him win. Gordon says, oh, please get a load of this wrist. Those two are just having fun right now. They're in the blissful early stages of their relationship. Joe ignores all that. He walks it. Well, he doesn't ignore it. He clocks it. He is frustrated by it. He doesn't respond to it. He walks into his office. He gives a passive aggressive, very annoyed look at Katie and Gordon through the open blinds of his window because the air hockey table is directly in front of his office. He turns on his computer. He hears Katie laughing. More air hockey sounds are happening. He's going to see on screen Rover, the Dallas Cowboys search. He gives just a vicious side eye to Gordon and Katie. He breathes in deeply. He's trying to count to 10, but he gets to 2 and he just can't. He's like, Gordon, he shouts it at the top of his lungs. Gordon and Katie stop what they're doing. They look at him, and kind of anybody who's right near the window stops and looks at Joe. Gordon's going to walk into Joe's office. Guess this is time to have some sort of a meeting. Gordon's like, what? Joe says, I can't hear myself think. Gordon points to the air hockey table. He says, you wanted the thing. You picked the place for it. We're going to see Haley go join Katie at the air hockey table. So no, they're going to play. So they're both going to be very close to Joe's office. Joe is ignoring what Gordon just said. He's typing at his computer. Gordon says, look, it's Friday, okay? All but 2 teams have clear cues. Maybe take a break from thinking. Joe says, so now when I put in Dallas Cowboys, the first results are the top fan sites. Once again, instead of dealing with the thing somebody is saying, he's like bringing it straight back to work. This time, definitely taking something out on Gordon that happened with Cam earlier. Gordon says, okay, so they've improved. That was inevitable. Gordon comes over. He looks at Joe's monitor. He's playing. He's coming around. He's part of the conversation. Joe says it's the next few results where we're in trouble. The Chisholm Trail Historic Society, the rankings for the Texas Rodeo Circuit, and of course, the Country Tejano Crossover Classic, Mercy Me by our friends, the Dallas Cowboys. He opens up that website and we hear some of the music playing on that website. Oh, it sounds so 90s. Gordon says, look, I don't get it. I mean, the last time we looked at it, that was a bad thing. Joe says, well, then they ranked too high. They've managed to make the results accurate for the average user while still accounting for the outlier. He's frustrated. He's like, it's brilliant. Okay, so the algorithm is working better. They've figured out more than a Band-Aid for those search titles. Gordon walks back toward the door. He was like, he came around to look at Joe's computer to sort of be in it with him, but Joe's in something he doesn't want to be in. So Gordon walks back around to the other side towards the door again. He says, well, if the results are that impressive, then Joe's very firmly says they are. We need to build our coding team, hire analysts, statisticians. Gordon's waving his hands like, whoa, whoa, look, this is a much larger conversation. Joe says, so let's have it. He's like, we are at work. Gordon looks back into the main office area. He hears Katie and Haley playing air hockey. He's like, it's Friday. Joe says, and the cues are clear. Gordon sits down on the couch. This part just sort of breaks my heart, to be honest, even though Joe is still thinking that he's talking about work. Gordon sits down on the couch. Like, he can see his friend's hurting about something. This might not be about the algorithm exactly. Like, what is going on for this man? So Gordon's gonna like have a friend moment. He sits down. Joe says, growth has slowed. Gordon says, yet we're still growing. Joe says, not for long with this. Gordon says, I think you're overstating things. Joe says, look, I get it if you don't think we're going to be able to pay for it. Gordon says, I think you were right the first time. What we have is working. Comet is great. Okay? Will you please just relax? Joe, pause for a second. Joe's saying growth has slowed. Growth has slowed, maybe literally for Comet, and maybe there is a real concern that growth is not slowing for Rover. But I also think he's talking about the relationship with Cam. Both of these things can be true in this conversation. And Gordon's saying things like, yet you're still growing. He's like, Joe's like, not for long with this, with Rover, with this conflict, with this problem. Like, and you could pick any number of the things that seem to be wedges between Cam and Joe to, sub in for Rover on that one. So, Gordon's trying to be supportive. Gordon's saying, will you please relax? And Joe says, we sure are paying Katie a hell of a lot to play air hockey. Ooh, this is such what is like a spiteful angle to take with this? It's like he can see that Katie and Gordon are happy and he doesn't want to see a happy couple right now because he's not feeling happy in his relationship. So he wants to like threaten Gordon's in some way. Gordon's going to lean down. He puts his hands on the chair to get his face just a little bit closer to where Joe is. He says, okay, what's this really about? Like, you're going to bring Katie into this now? Like, what are we talking about? Joe says, ensuring the future of this company. Gordon says, yeah, because from where I stand, everything seems fine. You, on the other hand, walked in here this morning like somebody took a dump in your oatmeal. Joe's like, oh yeah, from where I stand, it looks like you don't care what happens to this company as long as you get, and now his voice starts to crescendo. So it's getting louder and louder until by the end of the sentence, he's shouting. He says, it looks like you don't care what happens to this company as long as you get to keep screwing the chief ontologist. So now he gets to the words chief ontologist and like he has shouted that. And again, everybody near the window at least can hear this. Maybe further into the room, right? The people closest to the window are Katie and Haley, who stop playing air hockey. Haley looks at Gordon through the window. Joe looks back and sees Haley looking at Gordon. Haley starts playing again, like, okay, awkward, just going to play air hockey. But everybody who needed to hear that or didn't need to hear that heard it. Gordon pauses a moment and he considers, and he says, why don't you get some air? What a sign of where Gordon is at right now. Gordon feels like a man to me who's just found some sort of an inner peace and perspective, like I said. This is really frustrating what Joe just did because he's so angry at something and he's taking it out on Gordon. And Gordon can take that on the chin. He's done it before. He's done it for years. But he just said a thing that really crosses a line in front of Katie and his daughter. And that's the kind of thing where Gordon could have gotten really riled up at that. And instead he says, Why don't you get some air? Joe's going to leave his office. He lets the door swing open. He slams the doors open on his way out, his door and the main office door. And in between, he walks through the office in a total huff. Oh, man. This is the result of the Joe and Cam relationship right now for Joe. Okay, we're going to go to Donna's office. We have to check in with Donna. Tanya is in front of her desk presenting to her. I was just noticing, so this is a really interesting episode in terms of how the Donna scenes are shot. And I think, part of this could be you get different directors and on an episode, and they've got different takes, different styles, different ways of shooting a thing. But also it works really well because I think in the last episode, Donna was recovering from the dressing down she got from Diane about treating her team better. She had had that dinner with her team 2 episodes ago. She was now every scene we saw Donna in the last episode with her team, it was like she was trying to lower her status so she'd be less threatening to her team because she was trying to ride whatever positivity wave might have come from the dinner that she had with the Rover team. But now she's in a different position because she's not happy with what's been going on with Rover. So a number of the key scenes that we're going to see are shot with these like handheld cameras, shaky right up in Donna's face. It makes her feel really imposing and it feels really real time, and it's anxiety inducing for the audience. This scene is a little bit different from that, where it's sort of shot from the corner of the room. And in this context, I noticed that because, I had mentioned in the previous episode how we had, like, when Donna's in her office and we've got Boz and Tanya presenting to her and they're always standing on the other side. It's like she's lowering her status so they can present to her. I noticed in this scene, the way that the camera is pulled back, there aren't even chairs on the other side of Donna's desk for people to sit down if they wanted. So this is set up for people to do standing pitches to her. It's also extremely unfriendly. It's like Donna's signal to everybody in her office, like, please don't come in here to have a chat. Don't do it. If you'd like to come in, you'll stand as long as you can stand it, and then you go. So there's something, I don't know if this is a typical thing for venture capital firms, but there aren't chairs to sit down at. So we're going to see Tanya standing in front of her desk, presenting to Donna. And then we're going to see, after a little bit, we're going to see that Boz is actually also in the room, but he's like up against the wall. He's very disengaged. He's being very careful around Donna. He's not presenting a united front with Tanya. Tanya probably doesn't know what the hell's happening here. Tanya's saying, okay, the first wave of hires will be in the engineering department, 4 programmers by the end of the month, a director of product management and QA team by Q2. So they're talking about all the people they want to hire with their Series A funding. Boz, we see him now, he's hanging back at the door, shuffling his feet. So it's not just Tanya presenting, but Boz is saying nothing. Donna, I keep mixing Donna and Tanya's names together, which is kind of interesting for me. But anyway, Donna is watching Boz, not Tanya, who has been presenting to her. Donna says to Boz, you have fun last night? Boz says, sure, nice do. I now know, because I lived in New Zealand, that like do is like a party, a function. But prior to that, I never really came across language like this. So I guess that's a Texas thing too. Donna says, yeah, I was so wired, stayed up half the night looking at that algorithm. It's just so impressive, don't you think? Tanya's very pleased. She takes the compliment, even though it is not a compliment. It is a trap. But Tanya's like, yeah, Cecil really came through. She wants to get Donna back on target. She doesn't really understand what this side conversation is. So Tanya's like, on the top sheet, you'll see we're outsourcing the CFO role. Donna is still mulling something over. She's not really listening to Tanya here. She talks to Boz again. Super rude, right? To be ignoring Tanya in this way. But there's also a certain underlying hostility here. Tanya's got to be clocking that too. So Donna points this at Boz again. She says, I mean, he solved every problem he's been wrestling with for months in one elegant update. Boz is like, well, I guess the muse finally had something to say. Donna says, don't you wonder what took him so long? Boz says, I don't. Tanya's taking stock of this whole conversation. She has no idea what's going on. I was like, let's put a pin in expanding the programming department for now. Cecil performed so well under pressure. Let's see if he surprises us again. Boz and Tanya leave. They're going to deliver that information back to the Rover team, and we're going to catch up with the Rover team later once they've done that. But first, we're going to go to Comet. I'll just say on that last scene, it is all just a trap from Donna. She has almost fully clocked what's happened here. She knows Cecil didn't write the algorithm. She knows Boz had something to do with this because Cecil and Boz have a very coordinated and practiced story. I'm not sure if to what extent she suspects that it was Cam that helped with it. I don't know if she's 100% sure and just doesn't want to speak it aloud. I guess I'm still thinking that part through, and we'll get there when we get to the hospital scene. But she's like laying traps for Boz here. Boz certainly has an indication that Donna's on to him, but nobody's spoken those words exactly aloud yet. So, okay, now we're going to go to Comet. Katie's sorting through some papers at her hot desk in a conference room, I think. Is she just working out of the main conference room? Gordon enters and he says, okay, this is going to sound a little weird. She stops, she focuses on him. And remember, like the last interaction we saw, she was playing air hockey and she heard Joe shout this thing, right? So it's awkward. They haven't addressed that yet. So maybe he's coming in to address that because they're in a private room together. But he's like, hey, this is going to sound a little weird. She stops, she focuses on him. He says, got this song stuck in my head and I can't get it out. And Katie's like, I love this game. She's like, she might be thinking like, it maybe isn't the thing I thought you were coming here to talk about, but happy to have this conversation. Gordon says, okay. She says, go for it. So he starts humming a song and she's going to guess. She's going to guess a couple times. First, she says, Indiana Jones. He's like, definitely not. She's like, all right, try again. He starts humming again. She says, oh, it takes a lot to laugh. It takes a train to cry. He's like, that can't be a song. It is. It's a Bob Dylan song. Katie scrunches her face a little bit. She laughs. She's like, it's Exciting Tim's favorite. Which is funny because I'm just picking this up now. Could this be the Tim the fortune cookie was referencing? Exciting Tim? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so Gordon smiles. He's like, I don't know. Maybe I made it up. She's like, I bet it'll come to you. He's like, yeah. It's just like when you least expect it, because that's how it works with songs you can't remember. Gordon's like, oh yeah. He kisses her. They're being cute. She gets a little self-conscious and she stops him. I'm going to pause here before we get into like the second half of this conversation and just say, that tune that Gordon is humming, we have actually heard that in this show before. And we heard it in season 2. So for those of you playing the home game of this, you can check that out. But it's a song that should be kind of familiar to him, but he can't quite place it. So Katie, is guessing good guesses, but they're not the song. I guess he'll know it when he hears the right title. Sometimes that happens. I remember in college, there was a period of years where I was trying to remember really anything about a song that I remembered from when I was like on the bus as a teenager, like going to school. And there was a song that it was like, the 90s. And there was a song that would be played on the radio. And it was fairly frequently played on the radio. And I couldn't remember any discernible lyrics. So it was like, So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, right? But um, I, when you don't remember lyrics or anything about a song, and all you can do is do what I just did, it doesn't help people very much. So for like a year, I went around to everybody that I met in college and was like, "Do you know what this song is?" And do what I just did, and they'd be like, "Nope, never heard of it." And I don't know how I finally figured it out, but eventually either somebody had heard of it or it somehow came back to me. But it took a long time for me to realize it was a song called Return to Innocence. So if you're ever wondering what song drove me bananas for a year or more, that was it. And when I finally figured out what it was, I was like, oh, because there is a whispery voice that does say, return to innocence. But I didn't remember that part. That's not the part you remember if you listen to that song. Anyway, I digress. I've so digressed. I don't even know what to do with myself right now. I'm going to get back to the topic at hand. All right. Katie is now going to ride with the new topic that Gordon sort of accidentally is bringing up here. So she's like, when you least expect it, you'll remember it. He comes in for a kiss, and just by coming in for the kiss, the topic is switched. They're in a conference room. Again, the blinds are open. People could potentially see, and now she's feeling self-conscious. So she is like, hey, I don't want to make this more of a thing. But Joe today, Gordon's like, yeah, listen, there's really no excuse, but sometimes Joe can just get like, he's like, look, it was a little awkward with Haley. Maybe you should talk to her. Gordon's like, what, did she say something? He says, no, but I'm sure she heard him. Gordon's like, well, she knows we're dating, right? He's like, yeah, dating. With this not so sure thing she's doing with her voice, like, yeah, dating, but that doesn't mean like Haley knows, like, we're sleeping together, like Joe just said. Um, Gordon says, you want me to have a conversation with my 14-year-old daughter about my sex life? He's like, no, I don't know. And Gordon says, what? He's like, well, maybe she just got weird with me. Gordon says, okay, listen, if you can't handle a little weirdness with Haley, there's no way you're going to survive trial by Joni. He's like, fair enough. Okay, I'll pack extra padding. He sneaks another kiss. She smiles. He leaves. I mean, look, I'm not a parent. I don't know. Do you have this conversation with your kid? Thing is, Joe made it very public. You know, he says this thing very loudly. Haley heard it for sure. Maybe Gordon has to address it with her. Like, I don't think, I think Katie hasn't. There, it's not appropriate for Katie to bring it up with Haley. Katie knows that Haley's not going to bring it up with Katie, but it's going to be weird. So, like, I don't know. I kind of think, I mean, does Gordon need to have the talk? Has somebody had the talk with Haley? But Gordon's dating Katie, right? Like, I don't know. I guess they are at that point where you have to somehow figure out how to introduce these topics to your kids and make them understand a little bit what's happening. I don't know. I'm just speaking as a person who hasn't had to have these conversations before. So it is interesting. Joe made it complicated, didn't he? Okay, so now we're going to get some more complication over at the Airstream. We're going to see coffee brewing. We're going to see coffee grounds all over the place. We're going to see dishes in the sink. We can only be in one place. We're at Cam's. So Cam is reading. She looks out the window. She sees a car. She sees a car. Why does she see a car? Oh my God. She's startled by a knock on her Airstream door. Who could she hasn't invited anybody over? No, none of her neighbors. She doesn't see them unless she goes to get groceries. So who is at the door? She grabs like a big long heavy flashlight. She wields it like a weapon. She wants to beat the intruder if it's an intruder that shouldn't be there. I guess all intruders shouldn't be there. The door opens and it's Tom. They're both very startled. Tom, because she's got a flashlight in her hand, she looks like she wants to beat him over the head with it. It's very much still in frame. She's like, oh, geez. He's like, hey. She's like, hi. Tom says, are you okay? She's like, yeah. She's going to put the flashlight down. Like, yeah, I'm not going to beat you over the head with this. Don't you worry. Um, so Tom says, can I come in? She says, sure. He comes into the Airstream. He's got a folio under his arm. He is going to close the door behind him. He wipes his hand because the place is disgusting. Joe knows it. Tom knows it. So he says again, hey, let's start over. Let's start over without the weapon. She nods, like, what is he doing here? She offers him coffee. He accepts. She's getting him coffee. She's very confused. We're going to cut to commercial and come back. Tom says, so you haven't responded to my emails. She's like, well, no, it's just, I haven't checked them in a while. She sighs. She's like, sorry, after everything with Atari, Tom's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that. I know you worked hard. And he's being very patient with her. Another man being patient with Cam right now. I'm sure she wouldn't want that to be the thing that's called out, but I'm saying it. Cam's like, oh, wait, you didn't come all the way here because you were worried about me, did you? Tom, I'm going to say reassures her to that point, but no, he's just saying, like, I had meetings with a few developers. She's like, cool. She's like, he says, many birds, one transcontinental stone. She's like, oh, so you are here to kill me. And she laughs. She gives him coffee. He says, I just need you to sign these. And he gestures with the folder, like, no, I'm here for a reason. She looks at the folder. She pours herself some coffee. She's like, sure, you couldn't mail them? Tom says, I did. They were in the box with your journals and the sweater. Cam realizes that those were hit by the truck. She's like, oh, okay. He's like, wait, did you not get them? She admits, no, I did. It got hit by a truck. It's got that, like, it's got like the dog ate it quality. Tom's like, okay, Cam. And she says, no, I know how it sounds. He is looking at her, trying to read her. Like, what is happening here? She says, I'll just sign whatever you want. Thank God Cam just jumps in and says that, because look, we've seen Cam be unresponsive to people before, and we saw it from the perspective of them waiting for her response. We haven't seen Tom. Tom's been waiting for her off screen to finalize the divorce papers. So we haven't seen this from his point of view, but we can see that this is what she's been doing while she's been unresponsive to Tom. And you know what? She's got good reasons why she hasn't gotten messages from him. She hasn't been checking her email. She doesn't have internet even at the Airstream. She doesn't want to check email because she doesn't want to hear anything in the backlash of Atari, the stuff that happened with Atari and Pilgrim. Totally get that. Something really did happen to the box that those papers happened to be in. We saw them fly all over the road. And then we saw her throw out all of the boxes she had of Tom's stuff. Look, this woman's great. There are reasons here, but let's face it, this woman has not signed divorce papers yet. Like, this is a person that she does actually need to find the communication on this for. There's paperwork to be completed. There's something to do. And she is also, like, making it impossible to be reached about it. So, like, he's sort of probing her, like, for her to be like, you could have mailed it. It's like, Tom has gone above and beyond to try to get this information to her. Above and beyond. Once again, Cam is like, no, this is on you. And then after, like, Tom is pressing her a little bit on this, like, did you get it this way? Did you get it this way? And she's giving all these excuses. She realizes it sounds like excuses, and that is literally not the point. He has physically come all the way to her to deliver these by hand. Just sign the damn papers, Cam. So, like, we get to that point in the conversation. She's like, I'll sign whatever you want. Thank God she gets there relatively quickly in this conversation, because otherwise I would have lost it at her. Okay. So we're going to see the Rover team meeting in a conference room because they've received the news that Tanya and Boz got from Donna in the last meeting they had with her of, we're not hiring more people right now, not hiring more engineers, more people to code. They are dealing with the fallout of that. So Elliot is full on complaining right now. He's like, this is insane. He's shouting. He's like, seriously, she's lost her mind. The door opens, Donna enters and fully interrupts this meeting. She's like, hey guys, door closes. She's like, just had a few minutes and thought I'd check in. Just wanted to see how that last little bit landed. She laid a trap and she wants to see who's falling into it right now. So she's come into this room. We've got that handheld camera that's going to follow her. At right, like kind of relatively close to her as she's walking into the room, it feels shaky, it feels unstable. Donna feels unstable. Everything in this room feels unstable. Everybody's on edge. It helps that we started with Elliot shouting. So Donna says, just had a few minutes, wanted to check in, have Boz and Tanya walked you through my thinking. She straight bats this one. Just wants to see like where the fuse has been lit in this room. Boz says, yeah, working through that right now. Vera says, with respect, we would prefer to prioritize programming hires. Donna's like, yeah, I understand the instinct. And in most circumstances, I would agree. But again, like shaky handheld camera. Elliot interrupts. He's like, it makes no sense to bring in a head of business development when we don't have staff. Boz says, hey, we're just docking in here, dude. He's gesturing to Elliot to kind of simmer down a little bit. Because the reality of this is that Elliot and Vera, this has nothing to do with, like, they have no idea what this conversation is about, nor does Tanya. I think Donna knows enough to know that they don't know what's happening in this room. I'm pretty sure she has the inclination that it's just Boz and Cecil that are aware of what's gone on here. So Vera is going to try to jump in again. She's going to try to pacify the situation. She says, we're all grateful for your leadership, Donna. Donna sort of tilts her head like, she's like, oh, Vera's talking. That's not one of the people that I need to be talking with right now. Vera continues. She's like, but I think we have more than proven ourselves. She looks between Elliot and Cecil because she's speaking up here. She wants to be backed up. She says, I would appreciate, well, we would all appreciate the respect of being able to run our own company without this much interference. I mean, props to you, a big thing to say, really bold, all the way out on a limb. The thing is, Donna doesn't care about her limb. It's a risky thing for Vera to say, and it is not a risk that Donna cares about. And Donna nods. She doesn't answer Vera. She turns to Cecil instead. She says, you're an excellent programmer. She leans onto the table. So remember, in the last episode, I kept saying like, she keeps sort of like sitting down next to people who are standing, even like sitting on the edge of a table next to people who are standing. She tries to keep lowering her status, but here she's done with that technique. She leans onto a table and stands higher than Cecil, looking down on him. So she's just said, you're a great programmer. He says, thanks. Now he says, and considering all you've accomplished in the last couple of months, I don't see a big value add in additional engineers. Cecil's like, yeah, I get that. But, think of what we could accomplish if we didn't have to worry about the cosmetic stuff or the database. It's just distracting. Elliot and Vera are observing this. Donna's listening. She is sort of like crouched like a predatory cat. Like she's just waiting to pounce at some point. Cecil's continuing. He says, and if I could just focus on developing functionality. Vera looks at Elliot kind of confused. It's like, where did this all shift? What's happening here? He says, if I could just focus on developing functionality, who knows what's possible? Donna says, oh, so you don't need programmers, you just need coding grunts? Tanya's observing all of this. What is happening in this room? She's thinking. Cecil's like, well, we need both. Donna considers that. She's like, let me lay a different trap. She's like, I want you to have what you need. Elliot's relieved. He's like, thank you. Cecil says, thanks. Spears like, you won't regret it. The handheld shaky camera raises a little bit as Donna stands up straight. She was leaning over onto the desk and now she stands up straight. She walks around everybody to Cecil. She says, but the idea of search isn't proprietary and our process, however, is. So before we bring in any outside talent, why don't we get you with our legal team? She is now standing directly over Cecil, looking all the way down at him. Her hand is on his shoulder and he is just looking straight ahead. She's up here. He's looking straight ahead. She says, why don't we get you with our legal team and file all the necessary patents? New trap laid. Elliot's like, we did that back when we got seed. Donna looks at Elliot because Elliot and Vera are not relevant in this room right now. Elliot and Vera are looking at Donna. We see Cecil, and Donna's looking back at them for a moment. We see Cecil in the foreground looking forward, panicked, not looking at any of them. Donna says, that patent was for medical records indexing method. Do you believe that covers Cecil's recent innovations? Now we're going to see that Boz is actually seated across from Cecil, his hands on his forehead, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Donna continues, she's looking at Boz. She says, the lawyers are going to want detailed specifications, how it works, what it does in writing. Boz is struggling. He says, don't you think we're being overly cautious here? Donna says, no, I think I'm being the exact right amount of cautious. I assume that's not going to be a problem. Cecil shakes his head. He says, no problem at all. That's the only answer he can give in this room right now. Donna smiles. She says, once we lock down the IP, you can have all the engineers you want. Donna leaves. Cecil exhales. He looks at Boz. Boz puts his hand back up to his forehead like, oh my God. Those two are going to need to debrief. So there's more than one trap laid in this room. Somehow somebody's going to walk into it. They have to, she's putting too much pressure on here. At some point, somebody has to crack, right? We're going to go and see what the reaction is between Cecil and Boz. They're going to have a private conversation. This looks like they waited to the end of the business day to do this. They walk through a dark office into a storage room. Boz closes the blinds even. The handheld camera is up very close between these two. We are fully in this conversation with them. We're like a co-conspirator with them right now. Cecil says, I'm telling you, she knows. Boz says, she's got her suspicions, but she can't prove anything. Cecil says, who cares if she can prove it? She can make my life miserable. She already is. Boz says, you've got to get it the hell together, all right? Get with the lawyers, walk them through how this thing works, and then move on. I know Donna will too. Boz is like, this is not as hard a fix as you think. Just like talk to the lawyers and take credit for it. Spoken like a man who did what he did in season 1 and got thrown in prison. Cecil says, you're not hearing me. I can't. All right. There are these chunks of what I wrote in there, but the way it's connected, I get what's happening, but I can't explain it. Whoever wrote this is on another level, man. Boz is like, don't sell yourself short. Cecil says, go ask him for the damn specs. Boz says, you know how to do it all. Cecil's frustrated. He leaves. Boz grimaces. It's such a desperate moment. It's like, look, Cecil doesn't even have the option of doing something underhanded here. He just doesn't even have the know-how to explain what this was. So, like, that part of it is completely off the table. Morally speaking, Boz is fully comfortable with Cecil, like, lying, taking credit for Cam's work, and like doing it in a way that gets legally bound. Boz is fine with that. Cecil, I don't know that he would be fine with that, but it's not even an option. All right, we're going to go back to Tom and Cam in the Airstream. We've got Cam looking at paperwork. Tom's sitting down at like feet away from her. They have a kitchen table that's like, 2 feet across. So he's like trying to give her space to sign the papers, which the only result of that can be just looking around the room. And so she signs a page. There's many things to sign. She signs one of the papers. He's watching her face as she's doing that. She says, I'm kind of bummed we're never going to find out what the sound was. Tom's like, oh, I never told you. Kim's interested. She says, no, what? Tom smiles, which makes her smile. I like this whole sequence. Like they're sort of back in the best part of their relationship for a moment. He smiles and makes her smile. He's like, you're not going to believe it. She's like, it's an old woman tied to a bed. Tom laughs. He says, close. It's a parrot on a chair. Cam's mouth drops open. She leans her head and she's like, what? He says, a huge one, a macaw, maybe. She shakes her head. She's like, no, the screams were human. He says, I know. He smiles at her proudly. Like, I'm able to at least deliver this like answered question for you. Cam says, wait, how did you get in? Tom smiles a bit. He's like, well, there was a leak in Shinsuke's apartment. There was a leak in Shinsuke's apartment. So Toshiaki had to open the place up for a plumber. And I just knew that was my only chance. I love how lived in these details are. We don't know these people. We don't need to, but I feel like I feel like I can transport myself back in time to all the times they've heard these noises, trying to figure out what they were. And like just the details make this feel so lived in. Kim says, oh, well, what about the scraping? Tom's like, it's a chair. Kim says, she can't believe it. She leans her head in again. She's like, what? Tom nods to confirm. He's leaning in. He's like, it's a chair, one of those metal ones with the heart on the back. I think I know I don't know. Is that more like Japanese decor? I'm not sure. So Cam's like trying to picture everything he's describing here. He says, the bird would drag the chair from one window to another. And at first I couldn't figure out why until I saw there's a cat in the alley. Cam is amazed by all of this. So they had this interspecies game of peekaboo going on. It's so bizarre. Cam is mentally calculating all this. She's like, so a bird. Tom says, yeah. She says, drags the chair with its beak? She's very confused. Tom's like, it's a big bird. Cam laughs. She's like, I don't believe you. Tom laughs. He says, why would I lie about that? And that, my friends, kills the mood. Up until this point in the conversation, I really appreciate that we are just getting a chance to see the old Tom and Cam, the part of their relationship they enjoyed. They had that banter. They had that, I don't know, like, and you know that this is probably like the best memory Cam has from Japan. And it's something that they were doing together in Japan, trying to figure out what this was. And now Tom went all Hercule Poirot and figured out the mystery. He solved the mystery. He's sharing the reveals with her. I mean, it's nice to see. It's nice to be reminded of what worked. And they're kind of maybe being a little bit reminded of what worked. There's a bit of nostalgia here for them. But Tom says, well, why would I lie about that? And that does kill the mood. So she signs another paper. He's sitting there awkwardly. She says, well, where are you moving? Tom says, we got a place in Setagaya-ku. She's impressed. She's like, the suburbs. He nods. She's like, well, that's unexpected. She keeps signing. I don't know why that would be unexpected for her. He seems so traditional. Tom reveals very quietly, it's like he's been waiting to sort of, when and how do I say this to Cam? He says, we're having a baby. Cam looks at him. She looks down again. He's trying to gauge her reaction to it. He kind of gives her some space to sort out what that reaction is going to be. She looks up again. She says, I'm happy for you. She seems genuine about that. She nods. He nods back. He's like, thanks. She signs another paper, closes the folio, slides it to him. He takes it and stands, says, all right. He says, you seem good. Cam says, I am. They're both nodding at each other like, okay, that's done. He goes to leave, which is basically like about facing to open the door. But she comes in for a hug. It's a hug kind of reminding me of the one Ryan gave to Joe in season 3. She like kind of gets down under him sort of and like hugs him from down low. And she's just so, there's something so like little girl about the way she goes in to hug him. You know, it's almost like hugging her dad before he left for war. It's just like another man leaving forever. He receives the hug. I don't think he was expecting the hug. She says, in the middle of this hug, when they're not actually looking at each other, but they're physically connected, she says, I'm sorry for all of it. We see his face. Mark O'Brien. I mean, a whole story is written on his face. What do you think his expression is here? There's a certain emptiness that I'm feeling here. And then a slight furrowing of the brow. Like just like those crease lines right here. It goes from blank to that. He seems a little pained by the apology, by the hug, by the real genuine connection they seem to be having right now. So many times in their relationship, especially in season 2, he would hug her and she would just be like she didn't know she could be hugged, but didn't know how to hug with him. And here, it's like she's doing that with him. You know, like she goes in for the hug. She initiates it. She was bringing him close. The hug ends. He looks at her. He says, yeah. Can't address what she just said, really. He opens the door in that cramped little space. He steps outside, and watching this gave me this effect of like, he walks out into this big open green world of nature from inside her cramped airstream. It really reminded me what a tight space she is in for herself right now. Cam calls after him while he's walking away towards his car. She says, "Aterashai," which means see you later. This is a final goodbye for him. He came in, got her to sign the divorce papers. He's leaving. He's getting married. He's having a baby. He's moving out to the suburbs. Aterashai. He stops, he looks back at her, he waves. He's expressionless. He goes to his car. She shuts the Airstream door. She just breathes in. What is the look on his face? I just, how does he feel about the fact that this relationship ended? I mean, clearly they were not their best versions of themselves with each other at a certain point. Like, I think like there was too much. There was too many things wrong with and they didn't want the same things. And she faked that she did. So like he thought maybe she did want kids. And then she realized she didn't, but did she tell him that? Or was she just not able to have kids in his viewpoint? And then they finally realized there was no hope and it all ended. And so I wonder, like, does he love this other person really the way that he loved Cam? I feel like maybe he doesn't. I feel like his heart was broken with Cam. And I feel like it's never going to be the same with him for another relationship. And I think if it could have worked with Cam, he would have wanted it to work. And I think he was ignoring so many red flags, hoping it would. And then they eventually got to the point where it just fell apart. And so for Cam to be in this position where she is now initiating a hug, initiating her care for him, which she couldn't do in all of season 2, and to then take accountability. I'm sorry for all of it. She's taking all the accountability. I don't know if she was able to do that in season 3 or in the space between that and season 4. She's doing kind of all the things, and it's way too late. And I don't know if it would have mattered anyway, because he wanted kids, and and she didn't. And I don't know, like, it's just so bittersweet. He's so, like, just that going between total, like, she apologizes, she's hugging him, he's on the receiving end, and he's just like blank until he has just a little look of pain. Man. And for her, you know, like, that she's able to finally do and say all of these things, like, it's growth and progress, but way too late for that relationship. Maybe not too late for the one that she's in right now. I don't know. So it's so sad, like, to go from their fun banter about the bird to the hug. Man. All right, let's go to Gordon in his office. He's going to see Joe come in to comment. We see Gordon now. We see the screen that he's looking at on his computer is the comment site. His watch beeps. He pulls out a notepad from his back pocket. He keeps it with him. He makes a note of his symptoms. He sort of flings the pen away. Katie comes in. She says, I'm headed home, but you're on my way to the rink. So if you want me to, she sees the symptoms book and she pauses. She's like, are you feeling all right? Gordon says, yeah, nothing to report. He holds it up to show her. So, once again, like, comparing this to the relationship with Donna, he couldn't even tell her about his illness for a while. He kept it a secret from Donna for a while when it was fresh to him. But this relationship with Katie, she's coming to him at a point where he has accepted that he's dealing with this thing. He's got a process. He's continuing the process, and he's not particularly keeping it from her. She already knew he was sick. This is just another part of him that if she wants a relationship with him, she needs to accept it. And if he wants a relationship with her, he gets to accept roller derby and all the things that she's interested in and all the things that are factors in her life. So he says, there's nothing to report. She's working out the details for roller derby that night. She says, 7:00 at your spot. He says, you got it. The telephone rings. He answers it. It's Cam. So really interesting camera choice here. We're going to see Cam in Joe's apartment. The camera is set up behind a rack of knives. Ooh. How's Cam feeling post Tom conversation? So Cam's like, is he around? He's not picking up. She pulls a knife out of the rack so we can hear it being pulled out of the rack. Shing! We can't even see her in frame at that moment. We can only see and hear the knife. Gordon's like, yeah, let me see if I can get him. Cam is using the knife to open a box. We're going to see Joe's profile in his office. The camera's moving a little. So Joe's in his office, like, looking straight ahead. The camera moves a little bit so that we can see past his face. And we're going to see Gordon starting to come to the door. And we're going to see this bright golden hour light streaming, like blaring in through the window behind Gordon. And so Gordon walks in. He says, Cam's on the line. Joe shakes his head and he says quietly, I don't even know what problem I'm trying to solve. He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Anyway, I don't even know what problem I'm trying to solve. Gordon's heart melts a little bit. He comes in, he picks up the line to talk to Cam. He says, I don't know where he is. Can I have him call you? What a friend. So from the top corner of Joe's kitchen looking down, we see Cam. She's like, okay, bye. She hangs up. She pulls a wok out of a box. So she must have come home, seen the wok on the floor, or just in pieces or broken, and she bought a new one. So she's opening that up with a knife. We're going to now see Gordon and Joe. Joe is sitting on the couch in his office. Gordon is standing in the foreground. We see his hip. Joe's like, maybe we just add a search bar. He's like, surely the thing I'm confused about is work related. He's like, maybe we add a search bar, not like a crawler like Rover, but we give the users the option to search our own index. Gordon says, okay, I mean, I could get behind that, like a search within a blog sort of thing. Just says, yeah, I don't know. He's shaking his head. He looks really pained at not knowing. He's so lost right now. He's so like things are just so askew in his world. And maybe it's about the rover and comet situation. Joe just looks upset. Gordon is going to take a box off of his chair and sits down. Is this another walk? Did Joe also buy a walk to bring home? Did Cam and Joe both buy a walk to try to fix this thing? Because that's kind of sweet. Or a Band-Aid. All right, so Gordon takes this box off of the chair. He sits down. He says, hey, what's going on, man? Joe looks upset. He's like, I was down there surrounded by Post-its for 3 years. And just when I feel like I've got my arms around it, I can't see it anymore. See what, Joe? Is it the internet? Is it this indexing project? Or is it Cam? Because all 3 of those things were obsessions. Gordon says, so we're talking about the future again. Joe says, I should call her back. Okay. So they're completely wrapped up in each other, the work and Cam. It's like he doesn't even realize that he's speaking in 2 languages at once, and Gordon's trying to translate between them. Gordon says, is this what you saw 10 years ago? Because it's not what I saw for myself when you showed up in my garage. Joe's like, that's the point. It was never about where it ended up. It was about how it felt. When I saw it, I knew how it would feel to build something with you. But this, and he gets all whispery. He's like, Friday afternoon, all the cues are clear. I don't know what comes next. This is a really honest admission. It's like, I achieved it. I have this company, this project. I've got Cam. Like, what's next? He's a man who's always been looking for what's next. Gordon says, most of us in the human race, we don't get to know what's next. I mean, we just feel shit as it's thrown at us. This right now is all there is. Welcome to the future, Joe McMillan. There's a little smile on Gordon's face. He's like, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm sure glad to have you here. Joe sort of sits with that. Gordon stands. Joe stands. Joe says, I'm really sorry about earlier. Gordon says, I love this. He says, hey, don't worry about it. But if you ever scream about my sex life in front of my kid again, I will rip off your head and shit down your throat. He's totally deadpan. Joe stifles a laugh. And then Gordon opens the door. He points to Joe. He's like, search bar is a good idea. We should do that. That line cracks me up every time. Just the very visual of it. I'll rip off your head and shit down your throat. Anyway, it's so good. And again, delivered without anger. Delivered, you could laugh at that delivery. Joe did almost laugh at that delivery. Joe knew it was wrong. Gordon's not holding it against him. Gordon probably is still going to have to talk to Haley at some point. All right, we're going to get a knock on the door. It's Joe's apartment. Cam is in the kitchen. Joe's not there. She runs to the door. She opens it, and at first we can't see who's behind the door. We hear Boz's voice though. Hey there. Uh-oh. Cam's like, hi. Boz comes in. He says, well, I don't mean to barge in on you like this. I've been trying you all day. Thought I'd take a flyer. I guess that means come to talk to you directly. Cam says, you know what? I'm just in the middle of something. Mind if we talk later? She's like holding him off. He's just going to come in anyway. He says, no, this won't take but a sec. He walks in further and he's like, is Joe around? Cam says, no, he's on his way home. Do you need to talk to him? Boz comes over to her. He says, no, just you, darling. Look, I know what we said. Cam groans silently. She's just like, whoa. She walks away a little. He's like, I wouldn't ask Cam if there was any other way. She throws her hands up. She says, no, Boz. We said no patches, no updates. It was a one-time deal. She's already feeling so guilty about what she did. Boss is like, no, it's nothing that grand. I just need a little help with the tech specs for the patent. Kim's like, what? You're telling me that he wrote half the work and he can't explain it to you? Boss is like, well, he could use some guidance. Just a few minutes on the phone. She says, Jesus, no, you promised me that this would never come back to me. Boss is like, no, and it won't. It won't. Cecil's got no reason to spill. Cam says, oh God, this is so stupid. Why can't you just talk to her? Probably Donna, maybe Diane. Boss says, oh, sure. Soon as you tell Joe, soon as you tell Joe, you really want him to know about all this. Is he like blackmailing Cam now? Is that the corner that Boz is pushed into? Cam's eyes go wide. She's not with this. She's insulted. She says, you need to leave. Boz is like, Cam. She opens the door to let him out. He's desperate. Boz is like, this is going to help both of us. She puts a hand on his shoulder. She spins him around and sends him out the door physically. She says, no, this was a mistake. We don't talk about this again. Boz is so desperate. He's like, Cam, please. She shuts the door in his face. Boz on the other side of the door is like, Cam. He's knocking on the door. He's like, Cam. She winces. We see now Boz is pleading on the other side of the door. Cam, please. We get a close up on his face as he's panicking. This is so hard to watch. Boz he's a cornered animal. He's so desperate. It's not good for Cam to do the things that he's asking. He literally just tried to blackmail her. She's so done with it. The physicality of Cam taking Boz by the shoulder, turning him around and sending him out the door is so opposite from what we just saw her doing with Tom, where she literally went in for a whole full body hug of him. It's wow. Man, how many times, like, have we ever seen her just not give Boz the time of day like this? I mean, they fought in Yerba Buena and it didn't even feel like this, it's got such addict energy from Boz, and she's so not into it. And I feel like, who in her life has she seen like this? Because it feels like she's seen the playbook of the types of things Boz might do here, and she's not with it. All right, we're going to get a close up on Diane's face at dinner at a restaurant. It's going to be a Diane, Donna, Boz dinner. So we start on Diane. She says, I should have let it slide, but after a decade of pretending to not notice him kick the ball back on the fairway like it was soccer, I was either going to have to say something or run him over with a cart. The camera's pulling back. We hear Donna next. We see Boz sitting there with a little storm cloud over his head. What an interesting choice for the dialogue to start with Diane. I was going to let it slide, but after a decade of letting this guy cheat, I was done with it. She had to say something. I mean, how relevant is that to this situation? I mean, it's as if it's as if she knows what's happening at this table. So this is a really dark scene, by the way. Donna is drinking and laughing. She's like, oh God, he must have been furious. Diane's like, he covered well. It took him 2 more holes before he found an excuse to wrap his 9-iron around a tree. Donna's chuckling. Boz isn't reacting. This isn't a conversation that like bodes well for him. Donna says, I'm as competitive as they come, but I can't imagine what compels a person to cheat so brazenly. She's staring straight at Boz, sipping a drink. Diane's like, a long life of being told that winning is your birthright. We see Boz staring at Donna. We can't even see Diane here. I mean, Boz, like all of this stuff that Diane's saying could be cutting Boz to the quick too, even though Diane doesn't know that there's this issue. Donna's like, Now we see Diane. Diane's like, John had a good line. What was it? She has to get his attention. She's like, John. He's like, what? She says about Elias. And I was like, oh yeah, man's just a little lobster convinced he's king of the crawdads. All of this reads the stuff Boz is saying about himself right now too. Diane beams at that. Donna gives a very fake smile. She's like, funny. Boz is so uncomfortable. Diane gets up probably to go to the bathroom. She says to Boz, why don't you get the check? Yeah, Boz. Oh gosh. Boz is like, oh, not exactly in agreement. Um, so she gets up, she leaves Donna and Boz at the table. Donna sighs. Boz looks at her. She says, I still can't believe it. Boz says, well, yeah, it's about time she stopped letting that Yahoo win. It was killing her handicap. Like, let's talk about anything but. Donna chuckles. She's like, you know what I'm talking about. She looks at him with a challenge. He's like, let's take the night off, Donna. She says, I mean, it's miraculous, really. Boz says, the kid can't walk on water. I had an idea. It shifted his thinking. That's all. Donna says, must have been one hell of an idea. And coming from you, a tech expert such as yourself, no less. Boz says, well, it didn't take no expertise. I just figured you wait in line in real life. Might as well wait in line on the internet. Donna's like, she's heard this one before. Boz says, Cecil realized. Donna says, our crawler was rude. Boz says, yeah, we had to, they both say, teach it some manners. Boz is like, damn it. Donna says with some contempt, you are so full of shit. Boz is breathing quickly. His breathing is very shallow now. He's like, how many of those have you had, those drinks? That's a good question, but also he's caught. Donna is angry. She says, I have enemies all over this town, and you bring someone in to poke around my project? Boz says, what the hell are you talking about? Donna says, did it not even occur to you that maybe someone out there is trying to hurt me? Very paranoid interpretation of this situation. Boz fights back. He's like, sounds like you're nursing a guilty conscience. Donna says, oh, please don't go trying to turn this around on me. Boz says, I think there's a reason you think I'm trying to screw you. Donna says, you were being reckless. Boz says, that's all you know how to do. God damn it. He says it quiet but loud in this very Toby Hess way. He says, I don't even know who you are anymore, Donna. It's all true. They both have things they can say to go below the belt and to attack each other here. And they're all true. And they can both deflect their own guilt by doing that. Donna says, I'm the woman who would have fired your ass if you didn't have Diane's skirt to hide behind. Boz says, well, shit, you've been hiding behind her skirt for years. Years. Oh my God. If Diane could hear this conversation right now, oh, she would not have it. Okay. My Diane would not have it with this conversation. Donna says, I did you a favor. The only reason I brought you on in the first place was because she was worried you were bored. Boz stands very quickly. He's so angry. He walks away and he feels pain. He sort of scrunches up and he's dealing with pain and he crashes to the floor as Diane is coming out of the bathroom, and she screams. We hear Donna saying, Boz, like she realizes it's taken a turn here. Diane sees Boz crash to the floor and she shouts, John! And she like, oh my God, she screams it. It's this guttural scream. She runs to him. She's, John! She shouts back to Donna, get some help, John. Like, she's like, look at me, John, stay with me. Everybody in the restaurant is standing. They're watching, they're murmuring. Donna is motionless. She's standing there and she's watching, and it's just concern all over her face. It's like this is a real low point for a couple people here. Boz is in the hospital. We go to the hospital waiting room, and we're going to see Donna's face. She looks like she's feeling pretty guilty. And then we'll pull back a bit and we'll see who she's sitting next to, who is Diane. Donna looks over at Diane. She's looking concerned. Diane just looks blank. She looks like she's in complete shock. We're going to hear a doctor come into this waiting room. He's saying, Mrs. Bosworth, Mrs. Bosworth. Diane goes to correct him. She's like, actually, and then she decides against it because it really does not help her in this situation not to be Boz's wife or considered Boz's wife. So she's going to sort of claim that by not denying it. She says, actually, never mind. So she's going to stand and go talk to the doctor. She leaves Donna in her chair. Donna is left just looking like she's feeling guilt, compassion. She's we see these moments, like Donna in season 4 is so hardened and so ruthless, but we see these moments where she sort of glitches, and we get the Donna we used to know behind it, underneath it, trying to come out, but life has just been too hard to let that be a constant thing for her. And so, this moment is bringing that side out just in her face. We're not going to see that for long. So first we're going to hear that the doctor says to Diane, he's going to be okay. The camera comes around from in front of Donna, looking at her face, to behind Donna, so that we're sort of in her point of view now. Doctor's like, all right, come with me. Diane goes and follows. The waiting room door opens, we hear it, and Cam comes in. Cam exhales. She walks over to Donna. Cam's just devastated. She says hi to Donna. Donna sees Cam. She doesn't even respond. But Cam's face is just 100% worry. She's, she obviously heard what happened to Boz and instantly thought back to the fight that she just had with him. She's blaming herself. She's worried about Boz. It's... And plus, Boz was like definitely not the Boz she knows when he came over to her place, right? So, and she also has a lot of information about why Boz needed her help so much, and she still said no to him. So Cam is just so worried. She says to Donna, how is he? Donna says he's stable. Cam is still worried, but that is at least a little bit relieving. She sits down, she sighs. Cam's like, okay, she's nodding, trying to absorb all this. For Cam, I think what she's feeling about Boz right now is so much bigger than the fact that she's in this room with Donna. Yes, it's awkward, but it's so much bigger than the fact that she's in this room with Donna. For Donna, it's not so much bigger than the fact that she's in this room with Cam. So you can see you can see Donna having a harder time reconciling that. So let's see, Donna says they were doing, I forget what it's called. It's to check for blockages. Diane's with the doctor now. She sort of gestures back to where Diane had gone back with the doctor. Cam sort of looks back in that direction as if that's going to give her some kind of information. Donna says, I'm sure there's more news. Cam turns back and she is going to assume this posture. Cam is going to hug herself for basically the entire rest of the scene. It's very much self-soothing. It's a coping mechanism happening right before our eyes. So she looks very worried. She sighs. Donna just sort of sits back. Cam says, what happened? Donna says, I'm not sure. We were at dinner and he was fine. And then he wasn't. Of course, she is leaving out the little piece about the fight she had with him. Cam just exhales really sharply, and through tears, she says, we had a fight today. And Donna just kind of gives it the old, it's like Donna, ruthless Donna can't react, but ruthless Donna can tilt her head. And then, she's listening. She's looking at Cam. Cam's like, I was mean. She sobs a little bit. It's so, Cam is such a raw nerve in this episode, between fighting with Joe, seeing Tom, fighting with Boz, finding out Boz is in the hospital. Cam is just, her emotion it's not even on her sleeve. It's on her face. It's hard not to feel some compassion for that. Donna, maybe a little bit does, but not 100%. She's like, well, you can't blame yourself. It's a little robotic, but there's at least that, it's compassionate enough that she would say a thing like that, because let's face it, Donna is not a fan of camps right now. She's their water is not underneath the bridge with Donna towards Cam. So she, I guess, didn't even have to say that you can't blame yourself, but if she's going to say it, it's not going to be full of warmth. Cam nods. Donna looks very curious. She's like, what was the fight about? So Donna doesn't choose to say, I fought with him too, and he had the heart attack during our fight. She's not going to give Cam that, but she is going to ask what the fight was about. Not so much because I think she's trying to rub Cam's nose in it, but because I think she suspects that Cam is the one who did the programming on Cecil's behalf. So Cam looks back at Donna. She doesn't answer, she just sighs. But I think in not answering, that's Donna's answer. Donna's suspicions are confirmed. Donna's going to exhale here. She's like, so it was you. The resentment just builds for Donna. What the F is Cam doing? She like it's just like, what? She just is Donna must be like, is she trying to ruin my life or save my life? Or what is she trying to do to my life? Like, I think it's just so confusing. The waiting room door opens again, the exterior waiting room door. Joe comes in. He's gonna see Cam, he's gonna stand by Cam, and then he sees Donna. Donna says to Joe, he's gonna be all right. She answers the question that has to be asked. Cam hasn't addressed that. Cam is looking at Donna because this is like a big reveal that just happened. Joe is standing, he's rubbing Cam's back. He's saying to her, you know, he's a tough son of a bitch. He's comforting Cam, even though, frankly, like Joe and Cam were on really weird terms before this. But this is bigger than that for Joe. So meanwhile, there's Joe rubbing Cam's back, and Donna and Cam, like Cam's just looking at Donna. Donna's looking at Cam, and then Donna looks back at Joe. She says Diane's with the doctors now. She's getting an update. Like, I guess somebody has to acknowledge that Joe's standing here, right? So we're gonna see Cam's face. Joe's rubbing her back. Joe's like, are you okay? Cam nods. Joe goes back to talk with the doctor because this is scintillating conversation for him, isn't it? Donna has so much pain in her face. She's really like stuck on the fact, like, what did Cam do here? And why? So Donna stands, she walks over to Cam, she leans down a bit. Again, Donna's all standing over people in this episode. Donna says, I don't know what you're doing, but stay out of my business and stay out of my life. She leaves. Cam looks after her, and there she is, still hugging herself. I mean, I don't know what you make of this if you're Donna. Like, Cam absolutely refused to let Donna work on the project that Joe, and Gordon eventually were going to work on. Donna goes off, and Revenge starts working on, you know, some variation, some competitive version of what Cam, Joe, and Gordon might have been doing. And now Cam's in a relationship with Joe now. She, you know, like she's not even working with Joe and Gordon. There she is throwing support to Donna's company. That basically hurts Joe and Gordon's company. What is this? You know, like, talk about a mixed message if you're Donna. And we've seen that Donna's paranoid. You know, her comment to Boz at the dinner table about how like she has enemies all over this town, and who knows what they're trying to do to her with like coming in with this code. It's definitely this like she's looking at this with the glass half empty all the way. And then so when you now say, okay, Cam's the one who did this, what does that even mean? Does she have good intentions? Does she have bad intentions? Doesn't even matter. Donna wants nothing to do with it, and she's warned her away. Okay, so now we're going to go to Gordon's house. We're going to see Haley looking very quiet. She is sitting alone. She looks a bit upset. She's looking at something we can't see yet. We're going to find out in a second. She's watching Katie and Joni together. We hear Joni's voice. Oh my God, I love her. Katie's like, right? They're laughing together. She's like, oh God, she's so bad. We can sort of hear coming through the Walkman that they're sharing and listening to a song together, that it's PJ Harvey's Rid of Me, which we're going to hear at the end of the episode. So they're smiling and laughing together. They're like sort of sharing this music and sort of almost this secret with each other. Katie sees Haley looking at them. She's like, "You want to listen?" Haley says, "No, no, no, I'm fine." She gets up and she flat out leaves. She goes to leave. Katie looks really worried about that response. Joni is going to sit up. She's like, yo, punk, you okay?" Haley's aggravated. She says, "Yeah, I'm fine." Katie says, "Boss is going to be all right." Haley says, "I'm just tired." She walks out. Joni springs to action. She says to Katie, "Can I borrow this, the Walkman?" He says, "Sure." Joni gets up to go comfort Haley. She calls out to Haley. So a couple things I wanted to point out about this. Now, first of all, what's Haley upset about here? Is it definitely the news about Boz? Might be. Absolutely could be. Is it the fact, is she still hung up on whatever she's heard about Gordon and Katie? That is also another potential thing, like the reality that your one of your parents has moved on after a divorce. That could be something that's hitting her, and that very I don't know, blunt delivery from Joe when she was playing air hockey with Katie earlier in this episode. That's a lot to take in. Katie had felt there was awkwardness around that. I don't know if that was resolved. I don't know if Gordon had a conversation with Haley. Not sure. So I don't know, I don't know how much of this is the Boz thing. I don't know how much of this is the Gordon and Katie thing. I don't know how much of this is Katie sitting with Joni and having this shared moment with Joni. So there's potentially a lot here. I love the fact that Joni knows that there's something wrong and just big sisters it straight away. She gets up, she prioritizes Haley. She makes sure like that she's gotten approval on that from Katie. She asks if she can take the Walkman and take the music away from Katie. It's a great big sister moment. We don't see a lot of moments like that between Joni and Haley. We saw Joni sort of do the Tanya and Nancy episode, like the whole sitting down with Haley's surfboard, and watching the Olympics together. Like we saw that. We saw Joni kind of smile when Haley pushed back on her for the first time. So maybe there's something blooming here in this sisterly relationship. But I just like that Joni has this level where, like with all of our main characters, really, like when the chips are really down, they can count on each other. And we're seeing that from Joni here, which is lovely. So now Katie's unoccupied. She's going to go to find Gordon, who's sitting in front of the fireplace. He's listening to his own Walkman. Katie's like, "Hey," he turns off his tape. He says, "Hey, are you headed out?" She shakes her head no. She says, "What are you listening to?" He says, "Nothing." She says, "Show tunes?" He says, "Yeah, Pippin." She says, "Okay, really though." He says, stress exacerbates my symptoms, so this calms me down. Katie's like, "Enya then," like still guessing. We're still doing this guessing game, right? Gordon says, "No, it's me. I recorded myself just talking, reminding myself that things aren't so bad." Katie's listening to all of this. Katie's down for a serious conversation, which is something that I like. Gordon isn't shying away from the realities of dealing with his symptoms and the fact that he has them. He says, "That's beautiful. We should all do that." Love that she does this. She gets serious. She kneels down right next to him. She says, "Can I ask a question? Can I ask you something?" He says, "Yeah, no, absolutely." She says, "Is there a pattern in your journals?" Feels like the type of question she would ask, as somebody who's used to sort of organizing data and information. She's asking if this is something that's been organized before. He says, "A few years back, I got really nuts about it and I put everything into a spreadsheet at the end of the week. Then I had my friend Gabe. He built out this statistical analysis program that would spit out charts and graphs and reports. But he just sort of shakes his head like nothing came of that." He says, "Look, I'm really sorry I missed roller derby this evening." He says, "Don't be there. It'll be there next week. It was nice to get some good time in with Joni. She's fun." Brent says, "She really likes you," which is something. think we remember a certain other person who came over to have dinner that, the poop and the bolognese situation that didn't work out so well. Seems like, Joni is sort of welcoming Katie in the way that Joni might, or at least not pushing her away with both hands. Gordon says, thanks for tonight. I really appreciate it. He kisses her forehead. So sweet. He struggles to stand. He's definitely feeling his symptoms right now. She sees that. She's going to walk with him. She says, it's still early. We can watch a movie. He's like, yeah, I'm really tired though. She says, okay. He says, is that okay? She says, yeah. She says, you sure? She says, yeah, call me tomorrow. He says, yeah, of course. I'll call you first thing in the morning. He's going to leave. I really like what I'm seeing from their relationship. I like that they have banter, but I like that they can also deal with the real stuff. I like that they're considerate with each other. I like that she asked about his symptoms. I like that she is curious to know things about this. It seems like she wants to be a partner in his process, not ignore it, but understand it and do what she can with it. So she gets these little bits of information. She's starting to be exposed to his kids a little bit more. They seem to be okay with it. Haley, maybe they'll put a pin in Haley, I guess. Who knows? But there's a connection there. I think they're creating space for each other's interests and the things that they need in their lives. I don't know. I feel like there's some maturity here in this relationship that I appreciate, especially for both of where both of them are at individually. So let's see what's happening in a different relationship here. Let's go to Joe and Cam in the car. Joe's driving. Cam is thinking. She says, pull over. He's a little alarmed by that. He's like, what's wrong? Surely you're thinking the worst. Cam says, can you just pull over, please? He does. He turns off the car. We see both of them from outside Joe's window. So we're looking through the driver's side window all the way to Joe and Cam. Cam says, I saw Tom today. Joe turns and looks forward. He's not looking at her. He's just absorbing information for basically the rest of this conversation. Cam says, he had some work here and I had to sign something. It doesn't matter. She sighs. She says, but I started thinking about why I finally told him about you and me. The very question we've been pondering. So maybe we get some answers here. We now see Joe from the other side, but not from Cam's perspective. We see the camera placed sort of in the back passenger seat, pointed towards him. It's a really interesting angle to choose here. He's still looking forward, but now he's actually looking down as well. And Cam says, because at the time I thought that it was the only way to save us, Cam and Tom. Joe's listening. She says, but now I think I wanted him to leave. Joe's frozen. She sighs. Now Joe turns to look at her and she looks at him. So first of all, let's just pause for a second here. In Cam's mind, why did she tell Tom that she and Joe slept together at Comdex? She did it because she thought she was saving her marriage with Tom by being open. But now she thinks it's because she wanted him to leave. She wanted this information to push him so hard that he'd walk away, which he did not do. So that's how Cam prefaces this. And then she comes out with her reveal. She says, I wrote the algorithm. Joe he's looking at her and now he's like, he adjusts his head to see and really see her better. She says, I did it for Boz to help him. He lost all his money. He lost all this money. Joe's listening. Cam is just really by the end of this episode, she's been pushed from so many angles. She's just unloading. She's being very honest. She says, he lost all this money and he hasn't told Diane and it's a big mess. Joe's watching. Cam continues, a part of me just wanted to see if I could do it. She's looking for Joe's reaction. She says, I'm sorry. This is very genuine. It's as genuine as the sorry she said to Tom She's trying out this thing where she takes accountability and apologizes for things, and maybe doing so now would have a different outcome than, you know, doing it too late with Tom. Just says, why are you telling me this? Kim's a bit worried, but she's honest here. She has I'm going to call it her little girl face here. She says, because I love you. Joe sees her. He has no reaction. So look, okay, what an interesting scene, because I split this into two halves. If you just take the second half of this, I take everything she's saying at face value. She wrote the algorithm. She did it for Boz. She was worried about Boz. That's a mess. She wanted to see if she still got it. So there's a little bit of that. And she's so sorry that it hurt Joe. All of that you could take at face value. The problem for Joe is that she prefaced it with this bit about Tom. And it wasn't to say, hey, Tom swung by and we're getting back together. It wasn't that. She was saying, here's why I told him about us. Thought it would save us. Then I realized I just wanted him to leave. So let me give you some information that you may hate. Like, the correlation now between those things has to be a little alarming to Joe. Like him saying, why are you telling me this? And then her saying, because I love you, is in sort of direct conflict with her analysis of her actions with Tom. And I'm wondering how much Joe is clocking this. I feel like the fact that he's not reacting, I think he's clocking it a little. I mean, you know, she could have said anything here. She didn't have to say the bit about Tom. She could have said Tom came by. It got me thinking about honesty. Got me thinking about apologies. But no, she gives this whole bit about her wanting Tom to leave. And so she revealed truth. Okay. So that scene is so interesting to me. All right. Let's go to Sneakers playing again, the movie. Gordon's asleep. He fell asleep watching this film. The phone rings and wakes him up and he answers. He picks up the phone. He doesn't actually speak into it. We hear Donna's voice. Haley left her bio book. Does she need it for the weekend? Gordon's so tired. He's like, hello. She says, do you know? He says, I don't, but can I have her call you in the morning? Donna's like, sure. It's been good for her. Comment. You know, Donna's going to have a really honest conversation with Gordon here, the type of honest conversation she hasn't been able to have with anybody else in this episode. And I like that her reaction to all of the places that she's been pushed has been, I mean, this is basically her version of asking for help, asking for support, just trying to be human. So, you know, she calls up with this like excuse about Haley's book, but there's so many other things she just wants to unload right now. So Donna's saying it's been good for her, comment. Gordon wasn't expecting that. He's like, yeah, I mean, okay, he'll have this conversation. So she's really growing into her skin. Gordon says, yeah, I'm glad you see it too. She's just a different person there. Or not different. She's just more, Donna says, yeah, I know what you mean. She says, look, I know it's been complicated with Rover, but Gordon says, look, Donna, it's fine. Donna admits, she says, tonight was hard. She's going to lean forward and we can see that Pilgrim is on her computer screen. So let's pause here. Some things to look at. So I like the fact that Donna and Gordon, I like the fact that they can really see their kids. I like the fact that they can really recognize their kids as individuals and that they can see what's working and what's not. If anything, maybe like the co-parenting situation, being like sort of forcing themselves to have these meetings with each other about their kids. Maybe it's allowing them to compare notes in a different way than they might have while they were married and living together. So I like the fact that they're both really spotting that Comet has been important for Haley, even though they haven't necessarily put their finger on all the exact ways. They both kind of understand the essence of it. So I do like that. And now, you know, she's, this is in her way an apology as well for the fight that she's created through Rover. Gordon's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. He's got the perspective on it. He's not really going down that road. And then, so now she gets into this new line of conversation around Buzz. But the fact that she's got Pilgrim on her screen, Joni and Haley are not there right now. This is on the screen because Donna is still playing this game. I think it's so, I just feel like Donna is just glitching and sparking, and like the part of her that wants to be ruthless and hardened, the part of her that wants to flip her watch over and be mean Donna, is also the Donna that saw Cam sitting and hugging herself and crying in the hospital waiting room. And she tried to console her partially, like, it's not your fault. She didn't take on any responsibility or add any information about the fight she had with Buzz. But, there was that. But she's still super angry. Like, now Cam's done something to help her. And screw Cam. But she did help her. So like, what's happening here? She doesn't know. Meanwhile, she's been playing this game that's like such a window into Cam. It's such a personal thing. Cam's a big believer in putting the soul into her projects, and maybe it's a piece of her soul. And Donna's been sort of seeing that through her game, and she's still playing this game. So it's just like this really unshakable thing for Donna. I think she's got a lot to work out right now. What does she think about all of this? I don't know what I think she thinks about all this, because I think Donna is still very much working through this. Can she trust Cam? Does she like Cam? Does Cam have her best interests at heart or her very worst interests at heart? Like, what is happening here? Does she have compassion for Cam, or does she hate Cam? Like, it's just, I feel like it's all just been blended into a smoothie for her right now. Okay, so now on the topic of Buzz, Donna says tonight was hard. Gordon's like, yeah, I can't imagine. Donna says the sound of Diane's voice when she saw him, it was, and he and I had been arguing. I was really rough on him. She looks upset. Gordon's like, don't. Donna says, no, really, I said some awful things. Gordon says, Donna, it's not your fault. If we rewind back, that's about as far as Donna was willing to go in her conversation with Cam. But Donna and Gordon are in a different place, and she's going to be on the receiving end of more kindness here. So Donna's like, no, but really, you weren't there. You don't know. Like, she's saying, like, I was really mean. Gordon says, yeah, well, he owes 300 grand, sunk a bunch of money into a bad deal and didn't tell Diane. Donna's face, she's just learning all this. She's listening. Gordon says, it's probably the real reason he went to work for you. Donna's mouth drops open. She didn't know any of this. Gordon says, he came to me first asking to borrow it, and I turned him down. So if you're assigning blame to anyone, and he trails off. Donna sits back speechless. She can't even comfort Gordon in this situation. But I also wonder what she's processing here, because Gordon is saying, look, I blame myself. Like, she knows Cam blames herself. Donna's been blaming herself a little bit. Gordon's taking this on in his way. Boz had this secret. There's stuff between Diane and Boz that Diane doesn't even know about. Like, this was Boz's reason to work for her to be. There's so much new information that's coming out here. And also, like, so now it's like maybe Gordon is trying to lift a little bit of that blame and responsibility off of Donna's shoulders. And so partially, I think there's like, wow, there's so much new information coming to me. But also, I think there's this aspect of it where Donna can say, whoa, this is somebody who's truly trying to comfort me. And maybe that puts it into context for her about what she was just doing with Cam in the hospital waiting room. So I don't know, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Gordon says, Donna, you going to be okay? Donna says, sure, yes. Night, Gordon. He says good night. They hang up. Gordon's going to stand. Donna, of course, is drinking wine, as is her wont here in season 4. She puts her glass down. She sees Pilgrim on the screen. We're going to start a montage here in a moment, and it's going to start with Haley. She goes to her bed with the Walkman that Joni and Katie had been listening to earlier. She gets under the covers, and from under the covers, Haley turns on the Walkman, and we hear PJ Harvey's Rid of Me playing. So in theory, it's diegetically playing through Haley's Walkman, although this just becomes a montage for us. So the montage is Donna starts to play Pilgrim, and she starts to actually play Pilgrim. Maybe it was never not on screen, but now after everything she's seen today, this makes her want to play this game. So it's been on her mind. Maybe there's just a bit of like curiosity here, willingness to be opened to Cam's ideas and thoughts and Cam herself. This isn't Cam, but this is the proxy for Cam. This is a way for Donna to start sort of exposing herself to Cam and having interaction with Cam that won't be threatening to anybody. So we're going to see what's happening on screen with Pilgrim. The Pilgrim walks forward. Donna's interested in what she's saying and what she's seeing. Then we're also going to see this montage splits between scenes with Donna and scenes with Gordon. Gordon puts down his tape player. He takes off his watch. He picks up his November, March 93, 94 notebook for his symptoms. This song is saying things like, "You're not rid of me." Gordon's not rid of his illness. Donna's not rid of Cam. Pilgrim walks forward as lights shine down and flash around her. There's like shooting star action happening. There's a whoosh sound and then sort of like a chime sound. The Pilgrim stops. I'm not sure what this is on the screen, but like it's maybe butterflies or flower petals or something that's floating up. Donna is intrigued by this. It's beautiful. I mean, it's 90s graphics capabilities, but it's beautiful what Cam created here. Donna keeps typing. The screen kind of glitches around Pilgrim. Donna's sipping her wine because the world's kind of glitching around Donna too. Donna's kind of glitching too, so why not the Pilgrim's world? We're going to go back to Gordon. He opens up a drawer full of notebooks of his symptoms. He puts in the one that he was holding up. He lifts the entire box of notebooks out. And then we're going to see the Pilgrim game again. Pilgrim releases more butterflies or flower petals into the air. They're kind of hovering around in the air, almost like some sort of a force field is blocking them. So Donna is looking at them with curiosity and she types something. And now the Pilgrim starts to sort of rock climb up an invisible wall of flower petals or butterfly. I don't know. Tell me what this is if you know what it is. We're hearing the song, "I'll tie your legs, keep you against my chest. You're not rid of me." Meanwhile, Pilgrim is climbing over its obstacles. Gordon walks through the house. He goes to the fireplace with the box. Donna is typing. Pilgrim has climbed to the top of the invisible wall. A light flashes, and now Pilgrim is standing in this sort of blue-white void, like a sky scene. We get another shooting star. Donna's admiring it. The song starts getting harder. "Don't you wish you never met her?" That's going to keep repeating. "Don't you wish you never met her?" Like for Gordon, maybe that's the illness. For Donna, maybe that's Cam. Maybe. Except Donna's face is just sort of getting so soft in this scene. Gordon puts down the box. The camera comes around to look at the front of his face as he's standing in front of the fire. A light kind of flares behind Gordon. He takes the cover off of the fireplace. We're going to see Donna again. She's watching as Pilgrim comes into the side of this sort of sky scene. It's this blue white void, shooting star action happening. She looks up and she follows one of the shooting stars, and we're going to see this sort of like mass above her, like another level, or like the top of this, wherever this force field ends. So it takes Donna into another screen where there's a bunch of, I don't know, it's like tables with like floating teardrops or like jewels over them. Again, doing my best to describe this. Maybe people who are listening have talked about this with other people before, and there's definitive answers of what we're looking at. So happy to have your thoughts. It's all beautiful. I'm just not 100% sure what I'm looking at. Pilgrim walks up to each one of those sort of like teardrop jewel sort of things. And every time Pilgrim gets close to one, a beam shoots from it into the mass in the sky. So it's like all of these seem like obstacles, but they're just sort of like they're just, there's a release there's a purpose to all of it. Gordon throws his notebooks into the fire, and we're going to see behind him, he adds, we're looking at his face as he's adding, and we're looking at his face and at all of what's behind him, and he's throwing books into the fire. And every time he adds more books, the light gets like weird, and it's spreading and it's flaring out in all directions. Which is kind of fun in comparison to the Pilgrim game, because there's light shooting in different directions with that as well. Pilgrim has officially activated all these teardroppy jewel things and advances to a new screen. Pilgrim stands alone in a snow-covered garden. There's a structure behind Pilgrim that looks a little bit like a Japanese structure. We're going to get a close-up of Donna totally enraptured by this game. Don't You Wish You Never Met Her is still blaring in this song, but there's a loving look on Donna's face. She's loving this game. So I love that there's this like this love and hate thing that she's still been battling with, but she loves what Cam has been producing. I don't know, it's like rekindling something maybe for her with Cam. Gordon watches the notebooks burn. The lights are still flaring because he's got all these books inside. And then Gordon puts the screen back on the fireplace. And then the song is ending as we like go to black, and we hear "Lick My Legs, I'm on fire." And that's the part of the song we're at. And that's this episode. That's 405, my friends. So, I mean, what an interesting time in all of these relationships. So I do think that, Boz's health situation is causing people to sort of reevaluate some things. I think when one person starts to reevaluate, or when one person wants to have a serious conversation, or when one thing shifts, the whole relationship shifts. So that's kind of the cool part about where we are with this. Like, people are kind of locked in these different dynamics, but as one person starts to change, everything changes. So we have to see things adjusting here. And having a major event like Boz, having a heart attack, and with three main characters blaming themselves for what they feel are good reasons, it's just, and then plus like Diane has the close connection to Boz. I think there's a lot of potential for where this takes the characters moving forward that I'm pretty excited to explore, because it just gives them all a new perspective. Okay. Music for this episode. Really one main song that we can hear, Rid of Me by PJ Harvey from 1993. Donna is playing Cam's game. Gordon burns his notebooks, but it's also the song that was playing on the Walkman that Joni and Katie were listening to earlier. Okay, favorite quotes. Got a few in here. So, okay. I'm making a decision on the fly. All right. So here's one from Katie. Honorable mentions first. One from Katie. Do you mind if we rewind a bit? I don't want to miss any madcap adventures. I've got a tag team one from Tom and Cam. Tom says, many birds, one transcontinental stone. Cam says, oh, so you are here to kill me. That's good. Another honorable mention from Joe. I've got a few in a row from Joe here. I don't even know what problem I'm trying to solve. He's a real number man. Joe also says, I was just down there surrounded by Post-it notes for 3 years. And just when I feel like I've got my arms around it, I can't see it anymore. Joe, talking about the internet, talking about cataloging the internet, or talking about Cam? Okay, Joe also says it was never about where it ended up. It was about how it felt. And that's something that's a refrain that we've been hearing from Joe, and in some ways from Gordon as well. Okay, I've got another honorable mention from Gordon. Welcome to the future, Joe McMillan. But actually, he's just talking about the present, which is why it's so great. Okay. My quote of the episode, and I really debated on this because the thing is, well, I take my favorite quote from the episode and I turn it into a graphic and I put it on Instagram, and I have completely avoided putting anything that has a curse in it for that reason. But I can't not use this quote from Gordon, so I am going to have to like censor the word, but here we are. If you ever scream about my sex life in front of my kid again, I will rip off your head and shit down your throat. I have to use it. Not so much because of the line itself, but because of Scoot McNairy's delivery of it and just the way it makes Joe kind of crack up. And this should be in the middle of a fight. But Gordon's not fighting and Joe's now laughing. So the fight's over, I guess, right? It's so good. Okay. Let's get into feedback, shall we? So first, I wanted to bring in this comment from Present Hour 24, and I'm going all the way back to 103 with this one. Most of the time I'll pull in comments or feedback that's feels really relevant to the episode we're on, but I'm bringing this one in because I wanted to show how far we've come. So this is Present Hour 24's thoughts about 103. Gordon is being taken over by Joe and has to fire a bunch of employees. Gordon doesn't want to get rid of people. He'd rather work with everyone, but Joe is making all the decisions and just wants everything to get done quickly. When Gordon gets in the car wreck and then fires his neighbor right after that, it was surprising. I think Gordon is being pushed too hard and Joe is trying to convince him that they are the same person. The disorder of Joe's personal life and his ideas of the perfect computer needs to be framed in reality. I wish Gordon and Bosworth would stand up to Joe more, but I think he's screwed up the company too much to get rid of him. So they have to figure out how to make it all work. That's where we were in 103. Look at how far we've come. Look at how far Gordon's come. Whoa. I mean, this was a man who had lost his edge. He had lost his zest for life. He had lost his willingness to come up with ideas and pursue his ideas. He wasn't willing to take hard stances with anything or anyone, including Joe. But he was also super bitter about it at all times. This man had like resentfulness about the loss of his dream and his failures. Look how he is with Joe now. I mean, these two are just at this point where it's like they kind of lift each other up when they need to. Gordon does a lot of lifting up for Joe, to be fair. He has to be very patient with Joe. Very, very patient. And it's something that he does not throw in Joe's face the way Joe threw that in Cam's face earlier in this episode. When Joe's hurting, Gord recognizes it as hurt and he's willing to take it on the chin and be there for him as a friend. But he also has conviction. He realized in the course of one day that an entire company he built needed to be sold because there was competition too big to fight. He's a guy that's built an entire team. Gordon's been through a road here. And I just really liked that this feedback was framed from the perspective of Gordon to see how far he's come. All right, now I have something from Sergio. So welcome back, Sergio. So this is from 404. Last episode, another great fly on the wall scene. Cam, Joe, Boz, and Gordon having drinks, great conversation, and enjoying each other's company, only to end with Cam alone, contemplating her future. We all have had nights like this with our friends that we wish would never end, only to see everybody leave the party one by one until you're just alone with your thoughts and a happiness hangover. Not to bring up Before Sunrise again, but this scene brings to mind my favorite line from the Before trilogy. I guess when you're young, you just believe there'll be many people with whom you'll connect with. Later in life, you realize it only happens a few times. It's so beautifully said. I mean, I just want to linger on what Sergio said there for a minute. It is a sad moment. And also, it's like, are you sad because they left or smiling because you were there? It's just like, I relate. Sergio relates. We relate. Okay. Now, some comments from Frack and Toaster Lover from 404. First of all, I cannot believe I didn't think to inspect this more, but Frack and Toaster Lover has some thoughts about Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. So all I know about Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan, I know one, very vaguely from media coverage, mostly from the fact that 90s US talk shows like Jay Leno kept making jokes about Tonya Harding being basically the worst person in the world. And two, in more detail from the movie I, Tonya. The movie focused a lot on Harding's background and her public image and struggle to be accepted by the figure skating establishment with its elitism and classism in spite of her talent, due to the fact that she was, in her own words, a redneck. Unlike other figure skaters, like her rival Nancy Kerrigan, who were seen as more appropriate and acceptable public figures. Now, what does all of this have to do with Halt and Catch Fire in this episode? Excellent question you've raised here, and why I didn't explore this, I don't know. Thank you. Here's Frack and Toaster Love's take. Sure, the characters are talking about the incident and that Tonya is not a nice person and watching the figure skating championship for the rivalry between Tonya and Nancy, but that's not relevant enough to name the episode after it. I didn't think about it much before, but now it occurs to me that it's because the theme of the rivalry and the season 4 is shaping up to be focused on the rivalry between Donna's Rover and Joe, Gordon, and Haley's Comet. But it's also interesting to consider that the Tonya and Nancy rivalry was between an exceptionally talented blonde woman from a white trash background and a dysfunctional family, and a brunette from a stable home environment who was able to project a more acceptable image of middle-class respectability. However, in this case, Donna is the one from whose side the first big attack came, and the one who has been feeling as if she's been blamed and ostracized as the bad guy in this story. Whoa! There I was telling you all about the history of Tonya and Nancy, never once asking myself, why? Why is the whole episode based around this? And this is a great angle to take with it. Maybe equating like Tonya to Cam and Donna to Nancy Kerrigan, or maybe equating the rivalry to the two competing, between Rover and Comet. So there's like this spirit of competition, this spirit of who's attacking who and who's undercutting whom is definitely part of the fabric of this show as early as season 1, but definitely now. Also, let's see, from 404 still, and this is after some thoughts about the season 4 timeline. I also looked up The Real World, which I also didn't know much about, except that it was a popular reality show on TV. I never liked and never watched any reality shows. There was a David in season 2, the Los Angeles one, which aired from June 26th to November 11th, 1993. And a different David in season 3, the San Francisco one, which aired from June 30th to November 10th, 1994. But the latter is impossible with the timeline. So this means Joni must have been watching a rerun of season 2. That makes her insistence on watching it even ruder and explains why she wasn't that bothered to let Haley watch the Olympics. Good digging you've done there. I like it. Putting all kinds of new context to this. So she had seen this episode already? Come on, man. All right. Okay. Also, I just wanted to point out before I get into another longer comment about Cam and Joe's relationship from Frack and Toaster Lover, that Frack and Toasted Lover, that Frack and Toasted Lover also had a whole sort of fun take on the different generation. Well, the generations as they exist through these characters, and sort of giving a breakdown on boomers and millennials and Gen X and all the generations that we're seeing here and what that might have meant for the story itself. So if this is something that you want to read more on, be sure to go back to the 404 comments and you'll find some really good ones here from Frack and Toasted Love. But now, here's a longer one about Cam and Joe. This is the episode where, after the initial bliss of a new relationship, we can see problems in Joe and Cam's relationship raising their head. This is 404, remember. It feels very realistic that a lot of the issues are everyday things, such as their different habits. He likes well-arranged apartments in the city. He likes everything in order and clean in his apartment. She's messy and likes the outdoors and thinks an Airstream would be a cool place to live, etc. Reminds me of how important camping was for Gordon in terms of his relationships. But a lot of the problem seems specific to this moment in their lives and the fact that they're in very different places, together with the fact that they're both too afraid to talk about their desires, concerns, and dissatisfactions out of fear of losing the relationship, which results in a lack of communication or even in miscommunication. Things have been looking up for Joe. He has a company with Gordon and he's excited, devoted to, and preoccupied with his job. And it's also giving him the opportunity to spend time with his best friend and with a bunch of other people. And he's enjoying these connections in a way he didn't know how to before. Season 1 Joe would try to order people around instead of being friendly with them and let them throw pies in his face. From his perspective, the one thing that would make it perfect is if Cameron would join the company and work with him. Gordon, Haley, and the others. And if she permanently moved in with him and was hanging out with him and the others when they came to his apartment to watch TV together. He doesn't press on any of this. And he sees that Cameron is in a bad place and needs support, but he probably also feels insecure over their relationship and wonders if she's really committed to it, if she doesn't want to permanently move in and is instead looking for another place to live. And even though he is aware that she didn't just leave for the wilderness, she wanted him to join her as much as possible. But that's not really something he enjoys and doesn't know if he can do it. He was glad to have her over at the workplace and lit up when he asked if she wanted to work there. But he's never actually asked her to. Cameron, on the other hand, is lost, as you pointed out. She's currently not working. Her latest project that she put her heart into has completely failed. Her professional future is uncertain, and she's coming out of an unhappy marriage that lasted years in another country where she had moved due to her husband's job, a marriage in which she tried to repress her real wishes and desires in order to try to be a good wife out of guilt and not disappoint her husband again. These 7 years of her life now look to her like a weird dream, as she said in 403. Now she's woken up and has to rebuild her life again and rediscover who she is. And the first time she did was buy a motorbike, as it's trying to make up for what she failed to do in 305 when she went back to Texas and was not able to confront her mother. So she failed to get her father's motorbike and instead got married to Tom. It's like she's rewinding the tape all the way back and starting again. And while her relationship with Joe is one of the bright spots in her life, it's not healthy for either of them if he's her only lifeline. And I think she also feels very uncomfortable with the prospect of moving into Joe's life, Joe's apartment, Joe's work, with Joe's friends, without establishing something for herself first. It makes her feel like she's barging in. At the same time, she can't help wishing that Joe would be hers all the time in a beautiful romantic fantasy she has imagined of the two of them together, all by themselves in the wilderness. But suggesting he abandon the work he loves if he gets enough money, this is not something that would ever work for Joe, and Cameron should know better. Cameron told Gordon she wouldn't want to work with them again, as her and Joe working together is a minefield. Oh, that's right, she said it to Gordon. And while there is no doubt that with that fear, I suspect that she may be also quick to say it's because she feels she would be barging in on something that Joe and Gordon have developed, and she feels Gordon wouldn't want her there. But she still couldn't help talking to them about Comet and Rover and giving them advice. And I feel like she would probably actually love to be able to do something worthwhile to help them, be needed, and show that she can still be useful. That's probably another reason, in addition to her concern for Boz, that she was quick to help Boz. She enjoyed being needed and using her skills again to help someone she loves. I feel that the cute scene of them making out in the Airstream also reflected them making out, being Joe and Cam, also reflected their different ideas and expectations from their relationship. Joe, are you trying to make an honest Lenny out of me? Cameron, I'm trying to buy this here jewel and sweep you away to a magical land. It's flirting and it's lovely, but it also shows how Joe is thinking of commitment, wondering if she would be ready for commitment with him, and maybe being insecure about it and thinking she had been willing to marry Tom and stay married for 7 years, but not with me. And maybe even wondering if anyone is ever willing to stick around. His own marriage lasted barely a month. Well, Cameron's outlook on marriage in general is probably not very rosy at the moment. And instead, she's thinking of romance, magic, freedom, of escaping together into the wilderness. The sweeping you away to a magical land also made me think of The Pilgrim. Has Joe even finished the game? He had not in 403, and Cameron is worried that he doesn't like it. Or maybe he just got too distracted by his own work and felt less motivated to figure it out once Cameron was right there with him. But he probably should try to finish the game because figuring it out would certainly help figure Cam out. So fun. I mean, what can I really say about that? That's such great analysis. This is a wonderful essay on where Cam and Joe are at this point in their relationship. These two, I just keep thinking of the visual of them like sort of doing this in their relationship with each other since season 1. There are these moments they come together and it's great, but it's like gonna last 2 seconds. It felt so good in 309, but there were major caveats around that because that was an escape from Cam's reality. It felt so good in 402 because they were both able to be in that and be like, just honestly, that being their focus. But here we are, you know, like they're just sort of like splitting apart again in all of these different ways. And they're trying not to say that, you know, they're trying to. It's interesting to compare their relationship up against what we see from Katie and Gordon in this one, because Katie and Gordon are both individual people who feel somewhat solid in their interests and their needs. And they're comparing notes. They're sharing that information with each other. They're finding ways to integrate into each other's life in a way that feels integrated. Joe and Cam, it's like you find these different things about them and you're like, oh, that might be a problem. And so it just feels different between those two couples right now. And it may not be fair to compare them because Katie and Gordon are so new. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with these takes from Frack and Toaster Lava. And it's such a beautiful way to analyze where they are right now. All right, some thoughts from Amelia Flowers. First, on 305, this is one that I've been waiting to find a way to bring it back in. When we had the whole thing where Donna admitted that she never liked camping, and that was such a big deal to Gordon. And we talked a little bit at the time about why that would be a big deal. And Amelia shared this. How often were women taught or modeled that's what good wives did, just facilitated the man? I know from my own experience and my mom's and reading about so many women who didn't know who they are after the end of a relationship, divorce, or when the kids finally leave home, because they've invested so much time into fulfilling the partner, wife, or mother role that their hopes, dreams, or goals, a career got forgotten. It's starting to change, but more to do. It's great even in part to unpack that. I wish the show had pushed a little further in that rather than seeming duplicitous, which is hard because after what happened with Cam, Donna's already labeled as such. That Gordon had actually thought about all the sacrifices Donna made before she started at Mutiny. It seems these two haven't been able to be truly honest about their relationship in years, as has been mentioned before, and the cracks between the original bricks have been plastered over so much. Well, maybe there's just more plaster than bricks now. Yeah. The reason I felt like I wanted to bring that back in here, well, I mean, I think first of all, Frack and Toaster Lover just made a fun comparison to Gordon camping and Cam in the Airstream, but I mean, for me, the sort of the main thing about this is looking at Katie and Gordon together. And, you know, Katie's like, Gordon's like, you know, you love swing dancing. She's like, no, that's not what I said. I said roller derby. And it's like not a thing. He's like, okay, roller derby. That's fine too. That's just as hot. That's great. And now like maybe he and the girls are going to come check out some roller derby, and that's just going to become part of their lives. At some point, It might have started that way for Donna and Gordon, but at some point it got to the point where Donna was just going on camping trips that she hated. Um, and wasn't talking about it. And so now they're just like both putting their deal breakers out there, Katie and Gordon, that is. And it's like, you don't know what Katie's past relationships might have looked like, but for Gordon, this is a really important foundation to set. Okay, another comment from Amelia about 310. This future can be different. I feel a lot of what Joe says about the tech has double meaning and is about his relationship with Cam, but I'm sure both have become connected in his mind throughout their association. And when the operating system was taken out, their relationship was over. Joe, this is really great from season 1, episode 6, when Cam shows him the operating system and reconnects with her in the bedroom and is being authentic. So I love, I was excited to bring this back in because, yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing we saw it in 310 with Joe saying this future can be different, wink. And he was definitely talking about Cam and Joe, but he was also talking about this project, the internet. And now here we are in 405, and like Joe is like hard to have a heart to heart with for Gordon, because it's like, what's really going on here is like the website, but he's definitely talking about things that are connected with the fight that he just had with Cam, and they're so integrated with each other. So I love that Amelia is giving us all these little touchstone moments when that happened throughout the series, especially back to season 1. And one more thought from 404 from Amelia. I always felt sad for Joe when Cam buys the land in the Airstream. I think when I first saw it, I was hopeful that they would work through these teething problems. It seemed that Cam was trying to find herself after returning to the US, the divorce and the rejection of Atari, the failure of Pilgrim. It was similar to what happened after the IPO and ousting for Mutiny. Hanging around the house and then going off to Japan just reminded me when you talk about the spiritual side. Cam's story about the shrine in Japan always reminded me a little of season 1 Joe's story about burning down the ship in Scotland. When I read the last line, Amelia, I wish you could have seen my face. I went, oh, I went like that. It was so good. Look, the whole comment is good, right? Yeah, I feel sad for Joe too. Cam's like, oh, you want me to move in? I'm going to buy this other place somewhere that you hate, that you're never going to want to come to. And I know it. Let's do that. That's a great future for us. I mean, it's like, I mean, she should do what she wants to do. He should do what he wants to do. But what are we doing? So it's hard as a fan to sort of reconcile that. But this connection between Cam telling the story about the shrine in Japan, that people they tear it down periodically so that they can completely rebuild it. And that story coming out in the context of a conversation about how spiritual each of them actually are. And Cam saying, this story is not a story of being spiritual. It's not a beautiful thing. It's a story about people doing a thing because they need the process of doing the thing to feel comfortable. And then Amelia makes this connection with this story that Joe tells in 109, Up Helia, as they're going to Comdex, about this was it a Norwegian town, this town where they honored a Viking tradition, and they had this festival Up Helia where they would build these ships, and the victor got to burn this ship down. And if you remember, when Joe's telling that story in the car, Gordon's like, why did you tell us that story? It's just so like kind of off-putting to Cam and to Gordon and to Donna in that car. But for Joe also, it was a story about the process. It was a story about, here are these people, they have this ritual, they do this thing. Joe's story was about destruction. Cam was about creation. Now, granted, like, they had to build the ship to destroy it. And in Cam's story, they had to destroy the shrine to rebuild it. But you can see sort of where their different priorities were. It's just so interesting to connect those two. My goodness, Amelia. You guys are smart. Okay, so, all right. A comment from Synthetic Gerbil from 404. I think I'm feeling a little similar to Frack and Toastalova as far as Donna's office. I do remember a lot of it, but I don't think I considered a lot about it until these deep dive podcasts. I'm seeing Trip in a new light here where I didn't consider that he actually wants to work with Donna and be helpful. It makes me feel kind of bad for him. While I originally felt like Trip was a jerk for insisting that a man lead the Rover team, there's a lot of other aspects that are positive even if he's a little goofy. And with him sending the magazine to Donna, I never considered before that he was hoping she would revel in the bad review, but that makes sense. Also, very interesting. Many are seeing that Trip might actually be into Donna. I mean, why not? Synthetic dribble, this has all been news to me too. We didn't get any Trip in this episode, but there is more Trip to come. So let's see what we get from him and how much all of this lines up. I'm stoked. I mean, this feels like, for as many rewatches as I've done, this feels like a really big detail that I didn't ever pick up on that was blooming over many episodes. And if I'm being really honest, until this deep dive, I hadn't actually noticed that Yo-Yo was into Cam from as early as season 1. How I missed that, I don't know either, but I talked my way into that from the beginning and it held up. So let's see what happens with Trip. This is cool. All right. And now some comments from Evan the Stray. First, I wanted to pull in some feedback from 404. Amelia Flowers' escape day that Cam had with Joe at Comdex. Cam saying she felt sad and that was the reason for the affair. Cam's sadness may have been festering regret for the impulsive wedding and feeling there's no good choice with which to move forward, like she's painted herself into a corner. So her heart leads her head and initiates such a volatile move with Joe, realizing there's no going back to the previous state of things after such an event, thereby forcing her hand to deal with it and letting and making it unravel. She knew at some level what had to be done in her relationship with Tom, but she was unable to take those incremental steps through confrontation or conversation with Tom. So her heart or subconscious made a leap to force the outcome she ultimately wanted, a game reset, a divorce. It's just unfortunate it was such a battlefield amputation kind of way, though that may have been the only tool she had practically available to use at that stage of her personal growth in her life. I'm just trying to understand in a compassionate or humane kind of way rather than absolving her or condemning her. Yeah, some really good points. And for what it's worth, that did not end in divorce. There was years between when she had that affair, when she told, and she got very soon after, like within months after, told Tom about it, and they stayed together. Coming on the back of this episode, where she's just told Joe that she's kind of realizing she might have told Tom because she wanted him to leave her. But then Tom did not, because Tom apparently is a glutton for punishment. Tom stuck around. They tried having a kid. He was so happy to think that she wanted a kid. And partway through the process, she realized, yep, never did want that. And they couldn't get pregnant. So they ended up splitting up at that point. But I feel, I don't know that we have proof of this. I feel like there was some amount of time between the reconciliation about, like Tom saying, all right, let's stick this out. Tom not leaving her after her reveal of the affair. I feel like there was a gap between that and the moment they decided to start having kids. I don't feel like Cam, in the conversation to try to save the marriage, said, let's have kids. I feel like there was time between. I feel like Tom had already made a decision to stick it out with Cam. And then they tried this. I don't know if that's supported by the facts that you're seeing as well, but I just think it's interesting. It feels like a very specific choice from Tom to stay with Cam anyway. Okay, comments from 405. The short view we have of Donna walking into her home in the opening seconds is one of my favorite color and lighting shots. It's always stuck with me. It's probably the near complementary colors of orangish yellow from the hanging light and the nearby hidden lamp by the floor and the bluish white lights from the 3 lamps in the otherwise relatively dark room. Also, there's quite a bit of texture in high ceilings to quickly draw the eye. Look at you noticing the set design. I like this. Thank you for bringing this in because I don't do a great job of mentioning this stuff. Thank you for that. The 2-piece suit, jacket, and skirt Donna is wearing is maybe my 3rd favorite dress attire of hers. thus far into the rewatch. The blue, green, and pink to dark maroon floral-esque rosettes in a leopard print-like arrangement over a cream with possibly gold threading too background is very rich and vibrant. It appears that there's a slight iridescent sheen to the fabric as well. Her sleeveless blouse's color appears to be a darker hue of pink, a hot pink and crimson. It also looks to have a mild sheen to the fabric. I really like this blazer too. I had no language to describe it. And that, my friend, is why we need you. Thank you for this. She's got some really beautiful clothing this season. It's off the charts. Gordon and cool roller derby Katie are watching the movie Sneakers while eating what I choose to believe is a delicious Chinese food supper and appear to be enjoying themselves wonderfully. This is reassuring for those of us who are in the first inning of Gordon and Donna events from episode 309. From experience, eating Chinese food while reclining on a sofa is best done while donning a skirt. It's a bummer to dribble food on a shirt, and it's even more annoying mess to dribble onto chest hair. However, I'm glad Scoot didn't shave or wax for this scene. He's not competing in bodybuilding or swimming at the moment, so let's not be so self-conscious. Okay. All right. These are your takeaways, and I appreciate that. Country Cam is enjoying her rural lifestyle, much to Joe's chagrin. As Joe starts beating the horse skeleton about Rover's funding and Comet, Cameron dispenses a serious glare. The term algorithmic search sufficiently rattles Cam enough to crack stemware. With Cameron's anxiety level now raised, she seeks solitude at her country hideaway. Joe feels rejected, expresses discomfort from the separation of their lives and residences, then whacks a walk, following the argument that snowballed from Cam having a nerve hit in her conscience, which fortified her position of not helping with Comet. Yeah. I mean, once again, Cam goes to be alone to deal with her feelings. You know, it's another reason why it's fun to see the comparison with Gordon and Katie in this episode, because, you know, it's like, oh, you got a notebook, you're recording symptoms. How's that going? Okay. Got it. You know, like it's, oh, you want to go to sleep? Okay, cool, fine, totally fine. You know, they're able to have those types of conversations to figure out what each other needs. Meanwhile, Cam and Joe, like Cam, how many times do we need to see Cam go off and be alone to deal with her feelings and somebody else feel hurt about it before other people start talking to Cam about her process and trying to figure out how they're going to manage their feelings around it? You know, like it's just, like we just never have this conversation, and Cam has similar patterns. Cam is reading the Stephen King novel Gerald's Game, which was later turned into a 2017 movie by Mike Flanagan, though unfamiliar at face value. It seems to be a cautionary tale about bondage and idiotic men. Yeah, okay. So first of all, I hadn't noticed that she was reading Gerald's Game. Thank you for spotting that. Evan and I, when we were at the ATX festival, we went to the Mike Flanagan. I actually went to like every panel that Mike Flanagan did because he's a horror film director and he's done my favorite horror film, Hush, and some other really good TV shows and films have come from him. But Evan and I sat together at one of the panels, and yeah, so Mike Flanagan is in the air, and apparently it's in this episode, which is yet another reason for me to love Halt and Catch Fire, that is referencing something that Mike Flanagan later did. And you know, that's referencing something from Stephen King. Gerald's Game, what do I want to say about Gerald's Game? It's a very specific acquired taste of a movie where a couple goes away on a holiday. He ties her up and has like a cardiac event. He basically dies in the room straight away at the beginning of the film, and she is tied up because they were doing some bondage thing. And pretty much the entire rest of the film is Carla Gugino, the actress, tied up in a bed, trying to figure out how to get out of the situation and flashing back to some things in her own childhood that are coming up for her in the process. It's a lot. So I'm trying to think as I'm talking through that, how much of that is relevant to this story. I mean, it's a protagonist who is like literally tied up and cannot get out of a situation. What situation might Cam want to get out of? Hmm. Discuss amongst yourselves what's coming up for you as I described that. I don't know if the book is any different, but the film has a very, very particular I think it's probably pretty true to what they were trying to achieve in the book too. All right, Joe's demeanor from the walloped walk hasn't softened overnight. He enters the Comet office like someone took a dump in his oatmeal. LOL. He and Gordon are discussing growth slowing, which feels like Donna and Cam in the basement of episode 305 having a charged conversation about credit cards, yet still growing. Okay, nice comparison there. Yeah. For Donna, Boz's shiftiness surrounding Cecil's situation signals strange circumstances in their story. She smells blood in the water and she's going to get to the truth no matter what, baring teeth and all. Yeah. She's just so sick of it. She's just so onto this. Tom and Cam have such a peaceful transaction in her trailer, and that's appreciated. The big bird, macaw, and the cat story feels analogous to Tom and a duplicitous Cam. The script should have read as interspecies versus intraspecies, unless that was a passive assertion by Tom that the difference is actually an illusion. But maybe that's too much navel gazing on my part. I have the same question. Anyways, Cam is the bird and Tom is the cat. From the bird's perspective, the cat is always the same cat in the alley. Let me just read that again so I can process that. Cam is the bird. Tom is the cat. From the bird's perspective, the cat is always the same cat in the alley. From the cat's perspective, it sees a bird in two different windows. It could be two different birds that just look the same and are in two different places, apartments or rooms. I mean, that sounds really brilliant. I need to sit with that a little bit more. I'm not able to process that real time, but for those who are listening, jump into the comments, process it with me. Thank you. So good. Yeah. Tom being the cat, Cam being the bird. I like it. It's a fun conversation. It's just the last, it's like, this is what they were. Anyway. However, it's the same bird that's nervously changed positions, making considerable commotion in doing so, just to get a nearly identical view of the same cat. The cat probably wonders why it never sees a bird in each window at the same time. It probably feels a twinge uneasy and tired from staying vigilant to see if it can ever catch a glimpse of a bird in each window at the same time. The cat will never know from its view in the alley if it's the same bird or two different birds. Also, cats are revered as symbols of good fortune in Japan. That's true. Yeah. Cool. I mean, another way of looking at like the Tom and Cam relationship in a metaphor, so beautiful. Cam apologizes to Tom for all of it when hugging him goodbye. She probably just means the unsavory parts, because from Tom's current situation, for example, Sega executive, new partner, baby on the way, Japan, if that's your thing. It's a pretty good outcome from that marriage for him. Not that Texas would have necessarily been a dead end for him, but anyways, Cam appears to realize that might be the last time she sees and or talks to Tom again. She's reflective and it looks appropriately heavy. Yeah, I mean, look, Tom has it all right now. If what he wanted was a traditional lifestyle, he has it all. But the Tom we see walking away from Cam is not a man who is skipping to the life that he has it all in. I just am so struck by Mark O'Brien's choices of facial expressions in that hug. He's like stunned and shocked and like blank when she shows him such affection and apologizes so genuinely and takes so much ownership. How many times in conversations from season 2 have I just said, like, what is he like? What he wants to hear from something from her that he is definitely not getting, because she'd skirt around every issue. She would never take accountability. She'd never say, I love you. She'd never be outright with her feelings. And she's doing it all in a goodbye. And so, like, he gets to see this growth from her when it's far too late, when it's already over. Um, and like he's just so blank. And then he gets this pained look on his face. And it's like, what's he thinking in that moment? You know, like, is he thinking so glad to have a baby on the way? No, I think, well, I don't know. I think he loved Cam. And I don't know if he loves this other person that same way. Um, but he's also not going to glow about that in front of her. What good does that do? Unfortunately, that's the only view we as the audience get to it too. So him being muted and how he feels about his current life, like the only time he lights up in this episode is when he and Cam are like right back in the mystery of the cat and the bird, like they were, like the old days. I don't know. Man. Okay. Man, Gordon is so good for Joe. The scene in Joe's office when Cam calls for him and Gordon screens her, like Gwen Stefani used to do in the 90s, no matter who calls. Joe says the project in Gordon's garage was about the feeling rather than the end. Anyways, Gordon has a great gift of centering and easing people's anxieties now. Such a cool version of Gordon we have now. Yeah, he's a man who has it all. He has his priorities. He has his priorities straight. He's a man who's currently he's learned some deep breathing exercises. We saw him practicing some of that way earlier in the series, but this looks like a guy who's, he's found some ways to calm his stress. I think from what we learn in this episode, what he says to Katie, like stress flares his symptoms. So I think that has been a survival mechanism for him in many ways. I think for a lot of us, maybe we don't learn how to meditate or listen to the sound of our voice, and we sort of let the stress build up and we can kind of deal with it, even though it might come out in certain ways. We can mask it in other ways. For Gordon, he can't mask it anymore. When he feels stress, he flares up and it's highly problematic. So he's had to find techniques for staying even keeled, and he applies them when he's with Joe. And we're seeing them here. Desperation and fear are so hard to watch in Boz. Part of it is that it's Boz, and part of it is his age for me, the begging to Cam. But I will say, I chuckle when he asks Donna at dinner with Diane, how many of those have you had? It translates to, Donna, you're being mean. I don't want her to be mean to him. It's just the virtual supineness we're finding him as in Donna's Assailing Mounts. When Donna goes vicious, it's so good, like really satisfyingly good. Even though I don't like her being so harsh with Boz, it really gives me a charge. Maybe because it feels like her anger is under control and she's choosing to wield it, as opposed to someone just losing their temper and feeling out of control, which feels unsafe. I don't know. I mean, which feels more unsafe, though. I think like somebody, I think they both feel unsafe. Like somebody who just like is completely unpredictable and they'll just go off for no reason at all. They can't control it. Or somebody who's waiting, who's trapping you, who's literally a predator waiting to pounce in terms of letting their anger out on you. I mean, it's scary. All of it's scary for me with Donna. Donna isn't stopping until she gets the truth and people stop playing her for a fool. Although it feels like she's crossing the line in the hospital waiting room with Cam, Donna withholds from Cam that she also had a confrontation with Boz and lets Cam feel responsible alone. Yeah, she does go as far as to say, I mean, surely this is not on you. But there was more information she could have added to that, the way that Gordon did for her later. And I think that makes her think. Given the information Cam just told Jill in the car about why she told Tom about Joe, of course, the only question Joe can ask her is, why are you telling me this? It has to make him question whether she wants him to leave like she wanted Tom to leave. I feel somewhat vindicated too, at least from a Cam psychology perspective, on her heart or subconscious making her jump or leap, because her head wasn't able to take the steps to end the marriage to Tom without an irrecoverable big action that would force her head to catch up. Yeah, agreed. Donna calls to confess to Gordon how she feels, at least somewhat responsible for Boz's cardiac event. And Gordon shares Boz's debt issue and further secrets, which would have been hidden from Diane and Donna. You can finally see it click with Donna that all of Boz's secrets have been allowing so much guilt to reside in Cam, Donna, and Gordon that evening. Gordon also shares his feelings of responsibility related to not loaning Boz $300,000, and that's now exacerbating his symptoms. I do like Katie's Enya comment or joke earlier. Wrote much of my big freshman college literature research paper on the immediate effects following the detonation of a thermonuclear warhead to Enya CDs. Interesting. I have danced to a number of Enya songs in my life. I like Enya. Okay, the quote theme here is walk, don't run with the quote baton. Walk being W-O-K. Lane 6. The man's just a little lobster convinced he is king of the crawdads. That's from Boz, of course. Lane 5 from Gordon. If you can't handle a little weirdness with Haley, there's no way you're surviving trial by Joni. Lane 4 from Joe. From where I stand, it looks like you don't care what happens to this company as long as you get to keep screwing the chief ontologist. Lane 3 from Donna. No, I think I'm being the exact right amount of cautious. Lane 2 from Gordon. Welcome to the future, Joe McMillan. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm sure glad to have you here. That might be the only one we have in common. Lane 1 from Cam, but I started thinking about why I finally told him about you and me, because at the same time, I thought that was the only way to save us. But now I think I wanted him to leave. And that, my friends, is 405. We're halfway through season 4. We've done it. Some really good stuff here, really deep emotional work with these characters, a lot of Rorschach tests to explore here. I wouldn't blame you if you interpret things differently than I do in some cases, because there's, I think, room for interpretation with some of this stuff. But that's the beauty of getting 4 seasons in with these folks. I think it's so interesting to watch all of this. And I think the fact that Boz has this health matter arise, this health emergency arise, wherever they were at the start of this, I feel like that sets us up to be on a different path in the next episode, with characters having some realizations that they might not have had without what just happened to Boz and all the information that's coming out because of it. So, and this is going to be fun to get into the next one and see where we go. But until then, everybody, go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye.